Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm so pleased to be here with you. Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. I'm calling this semester 2023.2, and today is July 12th, 2023. And I'm pulling up my notes over here, which I always send out with the email for class participants, Level 1, Lesson 3. This one is called The Shape of Time, but I think more accurately, we should call it How to Navigate the Shape of Time. So this actually dovetails very well with everything I've been talking about for the past 2 to 3 weeks in both Levels 1 and 2, focusing on this shape. What I did over most of the past 2 weeks is focus a lot on the central core timeline, the one that goes up the center. Wait, I don't know if you can see this, where I've got my magical stylus pen, the one that goes straight up the center, and the one that is exemplary of ascended mastery. And I talked about that in class last week rather. But I want to talk about this shape as it relates to your higher senses, your higher faculties, and also navigating time as a cognitive process. And then I was also joking with everyone before I began class today that this is going to be one of those great classes where I'm like, ah ha ha ha, that's what I wrote about 10 years ago. Ah ha ha ha. Like finer times. And I'm not characterizing it very well. Sometimes when I look back on my teachings from 10 years ago, I'm kind of like, aw, isn't that nice? Like, that's what I was doing back then, kind of before the inundation of many different things that influence people's trajectory through time, cognitive abilities, awareness, and perception against their willpower. So my reframing from my notes and from the stuff from 10 years ago is 10 years ago I was teaching, well, you just choose from the platter of thoughts that are before you on a banquet. Ah ha ha ha. Like here it's like, no, you're not choosing from the platter of thoughts. Like things are being shoved into your mind, whether you like it or not. So I'm making light of it. It's not a very fun or lighthearted situation at all. But I want to validate it and I want to recognize it so that you don't go back to my work from 10 years ago and be like, it's just that simple and that easy. You just think the right thoughts and then you're able to navigate through time in exactly the right direction that you want to go. But I also don't want you to feel that this is a disempowerment teaching. I want us to all be able to recognize the challenges that you face today, or that are all collectively faced today, and effective ways to be able to respond to them. So first, let's start off with some magical pictures. Starting with some magical pictures here. I'm like, I have to press a button. Okay. I'm just going to do general. No, if I do that, that would be too confusing. Okay, big part of today's teaching, and I sent this image out with the class notes. The sense of your higher faculties. First of all, what do I define? Blah, blah, blah. We'll start from the beginning. This is your heart over here. I should be using green in order to talk about this. Your heart is literally the fulcrum of the entirety of your being. It's not better or worse than any other aspect of your anatomy. It is absolutely just essential or crucial. And the red, orange, and yellow that exist here in this zone of your body are a valuable part of your being. But I know, because if I say lower self, everyone's like, lower is worse and my shoulders go down. No, it's a beautiful part of your being, but has been distorted. And that's where we're really coming at this from. So there's two things. Oh, I'm so fragmented in what I'm saying. As I prefaced this by saying that I'm laughing gently at myself from 10 years ago, but we faced adversaries and challenges 10 years ago as well. 10 years ago, what you faced were implants at the level of, change my color. Come on, oh, a silly thing is happening right now. Sometimes you guys will see me just having so much trouble with technology. Yellow. Implantation at the level of yellow solar plexus, and the level of the daily waking intellect or your ego and your talking mind. That used to be the thing that you were facing. That was the greatest challenge in terms of it destabilizing your chakras, it drawing you towards peripheral timelines instead of being focused on the central core timeline, it being a distractor from the primacy of your true self, or even giving you a false definition of your true self. So that's a very, very real challenge that existed way back 10 years ago. pardon me, it's like 1,000 degrees out today. I'm going to drink a lot of water. And also throughout, human history, everybody's been facing the ego, facing language as an implantation, facing the distortions of what is called OS human, but is not actually created by humans in terms of your operating system, your mind operating system. Valid challenge. And I would say that that challenge was like maybe lifting a 20-pound weight at the gym of spiritual attainment. So seriously, a good accomplishment and something that I should validate and not in a gentle self-deprecatory way make fun of what I was talking about 10 years ago. It was a hard weight to lift for that level of development. Now you're in an entirely different level and section of the gym of spiritual attainment, where I'll go back to my face for a moment and then I'll talk more with this picture. You not only have to lift the 20-pound weight, like you are in the heavy Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilders area of the gym, where you are going to have to lift a 50-pound weight, or maybe even one of those 100-pound weights. And the 50 or 100-pound weight is the millimeter wave. It is the synthetic telepathy that some of these things are unmentionables. That's why I use couched language in being able to still show these videos without concerns about censorship or suppression. The millimeter wave that is emitted ostensibly as part of the communication network, but genuinely as a part of a consciousness suppression network that is on this planet. And the millimeter waves are an implantation of false thoughts. I call it a substrate of lies. It is both two things, and this relates to my teachings of 10 years ago. So, blah, blah, blah. In my teachings of 10 years ago, I talk about how there are two aspects of what you are using with your mind in order to navigate time. When you navigate time, you're not flying blind. What you are able to do is activate your higher senses. That's why I was going through my whole spiel. This is your heart. Everything that is lower than your heart is not worse than your higher senses. Your lower self is not worse or bad or wrong. It's excellent and awesome. But what you also have to do is utilize the activity and capacitation of your higher senses. And your higher senses are this abstract truth, insight or pure knowing, and connection to the divine. And by utilizing those levels of your senses, you are able to move consciously onto the timelines that you wish to experience. That is the whole crux of my teaching from the original lessons. You should be navigating time, making conscious choices. And what I talked about in the reductionist approach of 10 years ago was the sense of humans having this implantation here means that the human mind was somewhat spastic, uncontrolled, twitching out of control, associative, meaning you might see something like a coffee cup. You're like, yeah, coffee cup. And I remember that time my friend went to Starbucks, and then my friend this, and then this other thing happened. So the sense of your mind not being 100% in your control, mind being kind of like, a wildly out of control puppy that's like, and then I lunge over here, and then I lunge over here, and then it reminds me of this, and it reminds me of this, and it reminds me of this. So this is all very, very crucial because big takeaway, what you think determines and directs your pathway through time. What you think and what you feel. And what you think can be roughly divided up into two different types of cognitive events. One is the basic structure of how you structure your mind and your belief system. And one is actual cognitive events such as thinking a thought like the glass of water or the coffee cup. So an example of your belief system, structural foundation cognition, would be something like your cosmology, your basic story of where you are, how did you get here, how was life created, what's life all about, why are you here. All of that stuff is basic belief structure stuff, and that definitely determines what road of time you are going down. So I wanted to show you that image, and I'll go back to it again because the way that there's a whole array of all of these roads of time. Wait, this right here. there's a million different roads of time, almost literally an uncountable number of roads of time. And oh, I lost the annotation. No, guys, you know what I feel like when this happens. I feel like, and then I can't find my cursor on the screen either. Everything becomes very hard. Let's fix it and try it again. All right, this time I'm gonna get that annotation. It's gonna happen. Get it. In blue. Okay, so focus a lot on this third eye, eye of mind, eye of time, Christ connection, pineal gland. This is literally an aperture through which you perceive time, and let's imagine this is a timeline. You are, in a sense, eating time, as this is meant to be an arrow pointing towards you, the flow of time that is pointing towards you, and you are oriented with that particular stream of events. If you were to turn your head, if you're going to turn your head on over in this direction, you would then orient on a different time vector, a different set of realities. Those arrows are not very well drawn, but you understand where I'm coming from, what I'm trying to talk about here. So I'll just go back to my face. The inner eye is literally what you use in order to focus on certain streams of events or time roads or timelines. And this is meant to be an act of willpower and a conscious choice about what you are experiencing and what you are aligning with. And in the teachings from the original lessons, I talk about the levels of immaturity or lack of self-cultivation, where people are twitching all over the place and not really consciously choosing their timeline. That was a different time, when all that you really had to face in terms of your adversary to being a completely focused and coherent ascended master was the implantation of the mind that everybody gets, that everybody has gotten throughout all of human history, and that makes it a little bit difficult for you to access your insight mind, your mind of pure intuition and insight, but instead rather using this logical, verbalized, talking mind that, again, is associative. So you might be like, oh yeah, Aurora's drinking a glass of water. Remember that time I went in some water? And then remember that time that this thing happened? And then this thing happened? And then this thing happened. Wait, what were we talking about? So, and I joke about that, a puppy. Like, puppies are like, oh, a squirrel. Look, a thing. Let's go that way. And that's what the immature, unrefined, or uncontrolled mind is like. That's fair. But right now in your world, you face something that is much, much different, much, much more challenging, because you could already have, I don't want to say much, much more malevolent. You could already have conquered and refined your mind to be like, I focus on exactly the time roads that I want to focus on. I think exactly the thoughts I want to think. I choose only the most loving thoughts and I go down the time roads I want to go down. Then they erect all of these emitters throughout your neighborhood. And there are all of these synthetic, purely malevolent, it is anti-Christ, but I don't want to get into a heavy religious thing about it, but it is against that pure level of consciousness and conscious deep knowing. All of these waves that are going around through our neighborhoods right now, ostensibly for communication, but genuinely for consciousness reduction, are not just merely random fragments of waves. They're not just merely X-rays or gamma rays or something like that, or because I know that is ionizing radiation, this is non-ionizing radiation, but it all comes down to waveforms. These are not just waveforms that are caca-poo-poo or in poorly organized, nonsense waveforms. These are anti-life, anti-coherence, anti-empowerment, anti-your willpower. They are attempting to hijack your willpower. So what is funny, but not very funny, about what I wrote 10 years ago is that it used to be simply a question of making choices. That would be like if I told you, you want to look good when you go out, for your day, just make good choices in the morning. Like, choose an outfit that looks good, right? Like, this shirt matches this dress, this skirt, and these shoes, and then everything looks good together, right? Like, that's kind of like very nice and simple, but that's not what's going on right now. Because what's going on right now is, let's say you go into your closet and you're like, I'm gonna choose this dress, and something literally is like, no, you're gonna choose this one instead and put on this one. And then you're like, I'm gonna choose these shoes. It's like, no, I'm gonna have unmatched one tennis sneaker and one bedroom slipper, and that's what you're gonna walk around in all day long. That, first of all, it's totally unfair, and I'm using facetious and funny examples of what's going on so that we can be lighthearted about this. It is totally a criminal act, because the whole purpose of reality, when you talk about belief system and cosmology structure, you're here in a refinery of consciousness. You're here to make choices in what I jokingly call the choose your own adventure novel of your life. You are here in order to exert your willpower in free will, make conscious choices, and then reap the rewards or the horrible mistakes of what you have chosen to do. So yes, you're going to choose your thoughts and go down certain time roads and have certain experiences based entirely upon what you choose. And that's not what we're experiencing right now. Right now, what you're experiencing is a subversion of your free will, a subversion of not only your perception, because okay, let's say someone turns out the lights, you can't see in the closet, and you're like, okay, I want to choose this dress this morning, and you think that that's what you're getting, but the lights are out, and you look later and you're like, that's not what I wanted to wear at all. So conscious choices made in freedom must be made in levels of information. Like, you must be informed about what you're actually choosing and receiving. But also, right now, what's going on, no matter what you're intending, if you're like, I'm intending to, choose my blue cotton dress, something else literally takes your impulse and your creative motivational desire and shunts you onto a different timeline that is completely not one of your choosing, thereby completely diminishing the validity of this world as refinery of consciousness, because then it becomes not a meritocracy but an assignation. Not something. A meritocracy is where you have earned your place. You have earned it through merit. If you are going to become an ascended master, it is because you made choices. Maybe first you were going like this, then you were going like this, then you made the choices that made you go up the central core timeline. You merit and earn your focus and return to this level of consciousness. But when it is an assignation, someone else says, oh, you're choosing to go in this direction, but I'm going to choose for you to go in this direction. You are assigned. You are assigned a timeline. And that is, again, a criminal act, totally unjust, totally inappropriate, and reduces the validation of this world as a refinery of your consciousness. And then you are allowed to complain as much as you want to about the unfairness of the world, because I would very, very much agree with you. So for the past several years, we've been experiencing this world where, although you might be trying to make very certain conscious choices about where you want to go as an individual, where you want to go as a collective, you have not been receiving the timeline that you've been choosing, because something else has been afflicting you and sending you in undesired directions. And it doesn't act equally upon everybody. Some people is like, you're going to go way the F over there. And then you're just going to go a little bit off track. So it's not equal across the board either, which also blows away any sense of meritocracy and then becomes completely a corrupt assignation where some are assigned, these timelines and some are assigned these timelines. It becomes a complete nonsense world beyond unjust. And you should be feeling fluffed up right now. You should be like, humph, that's not right at all. Exactly. It's not right at all. It is beyond unjust. Okay, but rewinding a little bit more, as you know that I do. Rewinding to, oh wait, let me admit people to the meeting. I'm so pleased if people are able to come and attend live. Oh, and I didn't welcome in the new folks that came in while I was playing with my picture. Thank you and welcome. Okay. In finer times, in a pristine system, these are the things that direct your flight through time. Your basic structure of your belief system, which would be analogous to, let's say, the architecture of your vehicle, architecture of like, a raft or a boat or a ship or something like that, with each plank being a set of ideas, and of course, your vehicle being polygonal, not merely something that's flat, like a flat raft or something like that, but something that has shape and formfulness. And the whole idea of creating a strong belief system is that when you get to highest dimensional realities, you are going to be subjected to enormous forces. This is a standing wave, and it is meant to be able to withstand enormous forces. There are certain shapes or polygons in the world that have symmetry and integrity, so that if they are subjected to these giant either crushing forces or whirlwinds or strong time currents, they don't fall apart. They have a coherence. And so, like, a sphere has a coherence. An egg-shaped, an ovoid, has a coherence. Same thing with some of these perfect symmetrical polygons, toroid structure, flying rainbow lasagna structure. These structures of your literal time body means that when you are in a time tsunami, your ship isn't going to get broken into a million different toothpicks. Because if you have crazy angles where you're like, this kind of fits together with this, it's like a not well crafted belief system. And then it gets actually subjected to, let's call it, the force of logic. And I am definitely a logic-based being. I am not an AI or transhumanist or anything like that, but my Aurora Collective and where I derive from in terms of my consciousness origins, very, very much focused in logic. The way that math is about logic. Logic is about foundational truths that build upon one another, have a internal self-agreement without self-conflict, and lend a strength and structural integrity to the entirety of the system. And I am based in that formfulness and uphold that formfulness, cosmic law, because it works. It works. Those are the substrates of truth upon which biological architecture can arise. That if you want to have life, like, your life does not just arise willy-nilly. You don't just shake it out of a bag. You know what I mean? Like, throw a bunch of things into a bag, shake it up, and then pour it out, and you get life. That is not how life happens. Life happens as the end result of a very, very specific, focused effort by highest dimensional consciousness to put things together in a way that makes sense, including, let's say, the formation of atoms, molecular structure, molecular bonding, the non-arbitrary aspect of amino acids and protein folding structures, the non-arbitrary aspect of your DNA and your DNA's connection to time, and the non-arbitrary aspect of your consciousness as you are navigating those potentialities of the standing field that is known as the time field that is around you and that you live within. That's all structured in a very positive way. Yay, structure. Structure equals life. And if you diverge too much from that structure, then you will no longer be able to sustain life, either biological life or life beyond the biological container. And that is what we experience in the levels of either afterlife, after your corporeal death, or ascension. Non-biological, non-corporeal levels of continued being, that where if you are well structured, you are able to be subjected to these enormous natural forces that are like time tsunamis without breaking apart into a bunch of toothpicks. So let's say that you never in life really thought about things or considered your belief system, just kind of stuck things together and like, I made the face. I made that face, that SpongeBob face. Kind of like, I don't know, like, I never really thought about it. It doesn't really matter. Let's just go to the smoothie shop. Don't think about it. And then you either die or you face your life assessment or you ascend. And then there's actually someone with a clipboard that is like, good, sit down. Let's talk about your life and your belief systems. So here it seems like you believe this, but then here it seems like you believe this. And these two things are definitely in conflict. What do you actually believe? And if you're SpongeBob, you're like, I don't know what I actually believe. And then that giant force of logic is like, oh, crunch. Like that's the sound of your belief system breaking into a million pieces. I'm being facetious about this. It is actually a very necessary and non-facetious thing that has to happen as that transition out of biological corporeality is moving into states of pure energy where you can't just be arbitrary. You have to be, like, you can't see my paintings very well because the lighting is so bad, because I have the windows closed, because it's 10,000 degrees outside. But if you could see my paintings more easily, or you can see it on my dress, very regular, very symmetrical, very highly ordered. The world of pure energy and non-corporeality is not random. The world of the lower astral is random, crapola, nonsense world, but that is not the world that I'm talking about. Big, big difference there. So the lower astral world is a non-corporeal world, but that is not a place of order. That is a place of, let's say, mental fragments that people might have had, or not just people, organisms might have had during their daily waking consciousness in their dream state, or that might be residues that are of the momentum, consciousness momentum, when there's no more biological container. Like I've used that example many, many times of my friend that lives in historic Kingston, New York. in a building from the 1600s, because that used to be the historic state capital of New York State, and that there was a residue, like the type of ghostly presence in his house that he once saw lady in a Revolutionary War bonnet picking up a casserole dish from the table in the center of the room, turning and walking to the edge of the room, putting it down. That is the essence of what the lower astral is. That's not an evil lady. That's just some lady that a part of her is stuck in time, stuck in a time loop, fragment that never got swept up, that never got integrated, that never moved onward. And it's still bouncing around and time looping, bouncing around and time looping. That is what lower astral is. It is the detritus of experience. And sometimes it can be like very evil, toothy, fanged, monstrous, horrible, bad stuff. Sometimes it can be about ego traps that prevent people from rising through that area of debris, consciousness debris. But that's a contrast to what the true level of spiritual attainment is, that is based in love, orderliness, cosmic law, that is where you're really wanting to try to go. Like, so basically, if you are in a boat that is made of your belief system, and your belief system is really crappy and gets crunched, and you end up, shipwrecked on the shores, the shipwreck place is the lower astral realm. That's not where you want to be. You want to have a beautifully well-crafted vessel of your consciousness that will allow you to not only traverse the choppy waters of, your immediate afterlife experience or ascension experience, but to make it to the larger oceans of consciousness where you never stop navigating. You keep on navigating those. So that means, just like learning math, or any kind of language that is logical. Start off with 1 + 1 = 2, and that's going to serve you continually going forward. You're never going to be like, 1 + 1 no longer equals 2. Throw that out the window. That was a silly thing to believe in. No, that is a basic truth. That is one of the foundations for your house or your boat or whatever, your vehicle, to be able to bring your consciousness forward. And so this is like something basic at its level. Like, let's talk about things like that, like belief in God. Belief in God, that is one of those foundation aspects of how you form your cosmology, your worldview, your explanation for reality. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. It's the foundation of everything that you learn, and it doesn't become irrelevant later. It remains fully relevant even as you place greater and greater levels of complexity in truthfulness on top of that initial substrate. So right now, all of us are still alive. Hooray! Hooray! Like, cheer yourself, you're still alive. Yes, you're still alive, and there's enormous amounts of hope. What you should do is really go into self-assessment while you have the opportunity to do so, and be like, what do I really believe? What is my belief structure? What is my mind really structured like? What are my deeply held truths? What do I know on an unshakable level? And then what stuff that I don't know that's just purely in the realm of mystery, and what stuff that's kind of like, I'm shrugging, I think maybe I kind of know. And all of this is about wisdom attainment. And of course, all of this should be done without any of the substrate of lies. No one putting forcefully synthetic telepathy influences into your mind. That you literally should be able to choose your thoughts and your beliefs and your alignments, what you align with in terms of truth, in freedom. Otherwise, the entire experiment is kind of like down the tubes, because it's like, I thought these people were all supposed to choose in freedom and then go in the direction that they earned. And that's my SpongeBob face. But it's like, but wait, they were totally influenced and mind controlled. Like, then they're not really getting a chance to choose at all. I know, it's not right. Wait, drinking water. So that is, again, one of the ostensible purposes for this realm and the experience here is for you to choose and then kind of like take the consequences of your choices. See what happens when that is what you believe. And does it lead you to continued freedom and expansiveness, or does it leave you broken like flotsam and jetsam on the shores of the lower astral? Of course, we all want to get to levels of spiritual attainment and pure freedom and not be waylaid on the journey, or stuck in a bunch of wreckage. Before I go any further on my wild rant, let me read this beautiful comment. I don't know if it's a beautiful comment. Let me read this comment from Charlie B. Thank you for being here. Says, seems like the criminality is that individuals are forced to run an external program, quote unquote, as a life track, rather than, quote, make choices as a refinery of consciousness. So it truly becomes a nonsense world with these impositions. I hear what you're saying, Charlie. And I would say that there have been maybe other times when humanity faced greater levels of latitude and freedom, and there was more validity to the experiment or assessment that is going on, or this world as soul refinery, that there were just different parameters that were running at other times. And wait, I've just missed this comment, and I'll get to the next comment too. So some of the external programs that you're referring to might be something like cultural mandates. It could be social dynamics, it could be a caste system, it could be definitions of what is most important in life. Like in the American values system, why are you here? What's your cosmology? What's your purpose for being? And the answer is to make money. You're here to make some money. Hey kid, chomp a cigar, get out there and get a job. That is totally different than, let's say, the paradigm of ancient Egypt, where your life was focused entirely upon the attainment of spiritual attainment. Be like, you're here now growing some wheat and barley and corn to sustain your body, but what you really want to do is have a nice mummification, earn enough money to have a nice tomb, go into your afterlife, get on the sunbark of Ra, or something like that, right? Or there was also the sense of the Elysian fields, that if you didn't get on the elite path of the sunbark of Ra, you would live in like a lesser realm. That's what we call the Elysian fields. It's a world where you're still three-dimensional, and you still have to grow crops, but everything grows really easily. You never have crop rot, you never have drought, and everybody has plenty, a full belly, and lives in kind of like a bucolic splendor, the Elysian fields. That's a different world than here. Here, the value system and paradigm is materialism and focusing on corporeality. And there, the focus was on transcendence and materialism as a pathway towards transcendence of materiality. Like you need to get enough stuff to transcend having the need for stuff. So I validate your complaint, because there have been some challenges that we've been facing that have been throughout human history, and then there are some challenges that we've been facing that have been very, very, what's the word? They are specific only to this time place. Pedro also says, and all these residues are still part of God's consciousness. Are we supposed to fix this on the level of reality, or is this a job for ascended masters or someone else? Fixer collective. I really, really appreciate the direction from which you ask that question, Pedro, because it shows an enormous amount of compassion and care. You're asking from a direction of unity consciousness, which basically states that consciousness is consciousness and that nothing is disposable. So if you have a bunch of consciousness washed up on the shore as flotsam and jetsam of their broken, failed attempts to get to a transcendent plane, then you'd be like, but wait, we care about all of these things and they're not supposed to be stuck and broken there, and let's get them. I really, really appreciate everything that you're coming from there. So here's the truth. Some things that are washed up as flotsam and jetsam are fragments that will never transcend the lower astral realm. They have no constancy. They are unreal, non-coherent, non-longevity items, characteristics, or levels of being. They are just things. I wouldn't necessarily say they're aberrations, like some things should never exist and they should be wiped from existence. You would consider these to be like failed experiments or things that are poorly structured. And the whole idea is that there are some things that can't fit through the doorway, can't fit through the portal into the orderliness and grandeur of true highest dimensional. It's not time space, it's beyond time space. If you're not shaped right and you're not in an orderly state, you're not coherent, you can't get there. And that's important. It's like the velvet rope. Like you can't get past the velvet rope, you can't get into the VIP lounge because you don't want a bunch of uncouth whatever, like motorcycle gangs who are like, VIP lounge sounds great, vroom vroom, and they tear up the place. We don't want that. What we want is everybody to get into the VIP lounge who has been through this extensive process of soul refinement, where you don't think it's fun to tear up the joint, where you think it's actually fun to create and sustain life, not to destroy things. And so there's also only certain things that can happen when you're in a group of people that are like, we've all decided that we don't want to destroy things. So you could say like the need to destroy things, because erasing is part of artistry, but rampant destruction is not part of being an artist. So you can say, okay, we make a distinction. The VIP lounge is for people that have decided like, no, you only selectively, surgically erase certain things. You don't just like randomly trash the place, which is why I joke about biker gangs that are not selective at all in their destructive patterns. So yeah, flying rainbow lasagna can include some levels of destruction in its patterning. It is patterned. It is intentional. If I am making a picture of a face, here's my pencil. Here, wait. I draw. Then I'm like, oh, that's not right at all. I turn it around, erase. And in the erasure, I'm making more marks that help to bring out the levels of the face. And then I squint and I look at it. I'm like, no, this part's not quite right. Erase. That's very, very different than the biker gang analogy where it's like, smash the easel, tear up the paper, break the chalks. We're not going to do any drawing around here. So there are certain levels of artistry in terms of reality generation and creation that can only happen when all the souls involved have already transcended the need for just rampant destruction, either self-destruction or destruction of things that are just, in existence or made by others. You have to transcend that to be able to do these giant collaborative art projects. So yes, we care about all sparks of consciousness and want all valuable, valid consciousness to be able to transcend, make it to the VIP lounge, get to these higher levels of perception, capacitation, eternal life, essentially. But there are some characteristics that are non-longevity characteristics, and they are non-longevity not only for the experiencer, but for the entirety that they are embedded within. So if you have these certain levels of rampant self or self, just rampant destruction, whether it's focused on self or other, rampant levels of destruction, that is not going to give you coherence and longevity. That's going to destroy things. That's going to just F everything up. So that is not a life-sustaining characteristic. It should be in a pile of debris. It should be left behind on a pile of debris and should not come into the new chapter of reality. That is what happens when you are able to get into these highest dimensional states. And this is, again, I love it when I'm able to speak in the most innocent and pristine way, because I'm really giving you like the brochure and the way that life is supposed to be on every level that we agreed to. But I also have to, very fragmented, but I also have to recognize and acknowledge the world that we're in right now. There's an enormous amount of injustice in terms of things that subvert your free will and things that have been making it so that it is difficult to assess your belief system while you are in life. And it is also difficult to make conscious choices about what timeline you're on. So theoretically, like here's a good example. A person going into a war, their body is perfectly healthy, but I had told you a couple of weeks ago about like those very, very fast, tiny pieces of metal that can make a person die. Stand in front of a very fast moving tiny piece of metal and you will die, no matter how healthy you are and making all these good life choices and drinking plenty of water, getting plenty of rest, eating kale salads. Tiny pieces of metal will make you die. So there's something about the life choices that are beyond biological metabolism that can put a body into the death experience. And that can be social dynamics and event realities that would put you in the circumstance where you would be subjected to these tiny pieces of metal whizzing through your physicality structure. If you have a conscious choice, then you would say, in the refinery of your soul, you consciously chose to be a part of that world of tiny pieces of metal, and that's what happened. But what if you didn't get to choose? then the whole entire thing goes out the window because you didn't get to choose. Somebody placed you there or forced you to be there, or subverted your willpower, and you were somehow shunted onto that timeline. And then it's not really a question of your character or the validity or assessment of your basic nature. Or remember, ascended mastery is when you are able to not only align your chakras in an abstraction in the sense with this central core timeline, but achieve a certain recipe of self, a certain recipe of the personality characteristics that are your truest, most eternal aspects of self. And so if you're able to choose and you're like, I choose not to go to the place where tiny pieces of metal can possibly destroy my physical architecture, then that would be one thing. But what if you couldn't choose? What if they made you? What if they said, if you don't go, we'll shoot you with tiny pieces of metal? There's a lot of things that are on that level that then call into question the validity of life as refinery. And then what's happening right now is not tiny pieces of metal whizzing past you all the time. It's invisible frequencies that are whizzing past you all the time. They're influencing perception, cognition, and willpower. And then it makes it very, very questionable about how much choice you have in your life. It goes beyond cultural dynamics and precepts, which is the previous generation that would have said, I only get to choose so much, like whatever, 89% of my life is up to me, but there's that crucial 11% that is dictated to me by my religion, my culture, my parents, somebody else, and that can be very, very crucial, because sometimes other people make you go onto the field of battle and be exposed to those dangers. But in this world, sadly, I think that you only have 11% of free will, if that much. And 89%, I think, of what is happening in the human mind right now is so heavily influenced by this millimeter wave that it just totally invalidates the sense of this current experience as a refinery. It is really something that you're simply trying to survive, that you're simply trying to don't hit the membrane of death, even though there are all these things that are whizzing around that are trying to literally make you align with death reality structures. So the millimeter wave, that is not merely for communication purposes, is not merely a form of radiation. It carries information, and the information that it carries speaks to your cells, and the story that it tells to your cells is a story of death and destruction and decrepitude. Fun stuff. So it doesn't just come through and say an artificial, erroneous, what would we call it? I have to stand up too and do a little bit of stretching my legs. It doesn't just give you an erroneous equation like 1 + 1 = 3, although it does have a lot of erroneous equations in it. But what it does is it tells you 1 + 1 = 3, and also your cells will shrivel up like tiny raisins. You will develop various genetic diseases, and then you will die. And that's literally what the story, the narrative structure of what the timelines are narrative structure stories and probability fields that this harmful substrate of lies, millimeter waves, is telling to everyone. It talks to your cells, which is why I want every single one of you to talk to your cells a better story and say, you're awesome, you're gonna stay alive, you're not gonna dry up and shrivel up like raisins, you're going to be alive and happy and regenerate and withstand everything that you're being subjected to. But first of all, you guys didn't choose this. You're on a planet that's been invaded and wired for harm and consciousness reduction and to fry you. Did not choose to be here. You actually chose to be here under very, very wildly different circumstances. And so there's not that sense of you chose to go to war or something like that. No, war has been declared upon you. A frequency war has been declared upon you. And you and your body and your soul has been subjected to things that you should never be subjected to. And when I talk about your soul, what I'm talking about is your trajectory through time. So there's a lot in the human realm of mythology and cultural truth of what a soul is, but I am very clear in my teachings and sharings in this class. I define your soul as your provenance, or the story of your particular spark of consciousness, where you've come from, what you've been through, and also your potentials of where you're going. And your soul is 100% based in your freedom of movement Anything that limits your freedom of movement destroys your soul, because your soul might say, for example, I choose to be born in these circumstances. And if something else does soul yoinkage, where it's like, yoink, I know you chose to go and incarnate over there, but I'm going to pick you up like the carnival ride, bring you over here, plop you down into this incarnation, and that's what you're going to get instead. All right, kid? And that is soul destruction, because your soul is, first of all, it's eternal, and it's kind of like the journey of a photon. Like, it's been going on for an enormous amount of time in terms of measurable time, and it adds up to something. It's important stuff. It adds up to something. It is the recipe of you, where you've come from through your various incarnations. So the body that you're presently in is one chapter of your soul's journey, and then you should be able to choose based upon what you experience here, based upon your belief system structure and the cognitive choices that you make throughout your day, where you're headed into your future, into your potentials. You should be not only choosing what roads you go on in terms of roads that already exist. If you look at the menu of possible futures and you don't like anything there, you should also be able to say, I don't like anything on the menu. I choose to create a new recipe or pave a new road. And that is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. So Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not only time jumping from one timeline over to here to one timeline over to here. What if you're like, these are all crap timelines, and I don't like any of them? Write a new story. Make a new timeline. Rearrange time. Rearrange the possibilities of the future so that you can have a different, preferable experience. And that's what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is, through this genetic rearrangement rectification dance. That's true freedom. And that is the recollection of your soul, or the soul sovereignty, the re-establishment of your soul sovereignty. So anything that can influence your journey, not only through life, but between lives, or in afterlife existence, or diminish your ability to consciously navigate any of these realms or levels of consciousness reality, any of those things, is soul crushing, soul killing, soul subverting, soul destroying. And those are things that we do not allow to destroy the soul. Because that's a big, giant cosmic crime. Let me read these comments here while they're still relevant. Hold on. So Pedro says, okay, Civil War lady could be rectified or sent to entropy, but is there someone doing that, or am I supposed to do that and I forgot? Or can I help with the rectifying without getting in the way? Beautiful question. And you go on to say, what I do know, I have to keep working on my tendril of attention. Beautiful. So again, I really, really enjoy the direction that your question comes from. Yes, one of the best things that can happen if you ever meet a ghost or a residual fragment of soul consciousness is to very gently and in a polite way say, we have to have difficult conversation, like, look, honey, you're dead. You're not supposed to be here anymore. You need to move on. It's kind of like the best thing you can do for these consciousnesses. So you don't necessarily have to get like holy water or like bazooka torches or something like that. You can be very loving and compassionate with it, but you have to set strong boundaries. And setting boundaries is a sign of love. So that if you lived in a house that had a persistent ghost residue like that, the nicest thing you could do for that ghost would be to be like, I see you there. Guess what? You don't belong here. You are dead. You are part of a life that is no longer in existence, and you need to go to where you are supposed to be. Don't hang around here. And same thing with like whatever, grandma or grandpa or someone in your life or your lineage, and they're hanging around and they haven't moved onward. And whatever, maybe you live someplace very prosaic, like whatever, Long Island, or some let's just call it suburbia. You live in generic suburbia, and grandma or grandpa is still hanging around in their rocking chair, and you sense them. Part of you might be comforted by that, but you can also be like, look, I know that you're very attached to suburbia and the comforts of life here, but there is a whole giant cosmos out there for you to explore, and you might want to be a butterfly or live on Jupiter or in a different solar system, and you should really go on your cosmic assignment and not sit here in your rocking chair in suburbia here with the people that you've left behind. So it's actually one of the kindest, best things you can do as a gift, being able to give that to them. That's if you have this kind of waking consciousness experience of it. There are also a lot of consciousnesses that you might interact with unwillingly from the lower astral, that they might be trying to kind of like punch through membranes and be like, oh, the living, let's push your buttons, let's influence you. So you have to have, again, incredibly strong soul sovereignty, where you're like, hey, this is my body, this is my DNA, these are my energetic boundaries, and this is big because you're taking responsibility for your life. I'm back to being like my cosmic clipboard lady. This is me. Like, I am going to assess you in your life. You do this thing over here. You're like, not my fault. Someone from the lower astral was influencing me. I don't accept these excuses. Were you in the body when you did this thing? It's not my fault. Someone else was. Were you in your body when you did this thing? Yes, I was in my body when I did this thing. Well, you know something, you have to be responsible for that, which is kind of like saying if you own a car or you own a firearm and someone else takes it, even though it is yours in your name, and someone else takes it and they create harm or havoc or destruction with it, you're responsible because you gave them the car keys or you didn't keep your weapon locked up or whatever it is. You're responsible. Keep your body locked up. Don't let someone else drive your car without your permission. And that also includes, what if you're like, I was drunk, I was on meth, I was this, I was that. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm not drunk and I'm not on meth. But if any of those things were like, but the contributing circumstances, chose to step out of your vehicle and then someone else chose to get in your vehicle and drive around and do a lot of crazy, destructive, harmful stuff. So the cosmic clipboard lady is always going to be like, you do this stuff. Your body did this stuff. Were you in your body at the time that you did this stuff? And this is very, very big in terms of taking personal responsibility and being a mature, responsible citizen of the galaxy, because we came here literally to be containers for DNA. We came here to be DNA bearing containers, and your DNA is a sacred vessel of consciousness that goes on a very long continuum into what you would call the past, and also continuum into the potentials of the future. And you are a caretaker for the information that is in your DNA. Millimeter wave acts on DNA, and here's how it does, and I don't think this is good, but I just want you to know the mechanism. So the millimeter wave stimulates the cell membrane that is in your somatic cellular body. Your cell membrane responds and reacts to stimuli that are in your physical environment. That stimulus comes through the cell membrane, it acts through protein structures that are in the cytoplasm of your cells, and then gets to the nucleus of your cells, or the nuclei of your cells, where it then acts upon the behavior of your DNA. And now I want to get into fun stuff and just talk about DNA behavior, but in this negative connotation of what I'm telling you, a negative story enters through the jiggliness of your cell membrane, jiggles its way inward through your protein structures, and jiggles your DNA, and then creates a false story in your DNA. There might be a false story about disease or death, or it might be a false story about, like, then whatever, moving to a different city or having a different group of friends, or like but here's a false story. Get rid of all your friends that care about you. Go hang out with a bunch of drug addicts, and whatever, live in a shanty town. That's not a good story. That is not a life-giving story. That is not a positive life trajectory. But there are aspects of the millimeter wave that do things like exactly that, or things that are analogous to that, that basically tell you to move away from the situations, circumstances, and relationships and communities that give you longevity and coherence, and move towards instability and destruction of self, and destruction of your entire social dynamic and paradigm. That's why it's not just nonsense. It's not just random nonsense like a bunch of X-rays or gamma rays. It's a very intentionally malevolent, false narrative story that's been perpetrated upon humanity. It's meant to kill your soul. It's dark stuff. There's a story here where someone is using synthetic telepathy to speak into your mind and speak through the membranes of your cells. And oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you one of the most critical features of the membranes of your cells. So your membranes of your cells are analogous to your brain. The development when you were a zygote, in developing in the first few weeks of gestation, of having a physical body, the way that your brain developed was essentially through skin folds, the folding of the same type of aspect of your body that becomes your epidermis. Your outer skin gets folded up and becomes your brain, inner skin, and your membranes of your cells mimic the thought structures of your brain and your cognitive abilities. So your membranes of your cells represent thought structures. The it's not mechanics, but the way that your cell membranes allow certain molecules to come in and influence the cells and keeps certain molecules out is a thought process. So your cell membranes are exhibiting a cognitive process in exactly the same way that your neurological processes in your neurons are exhibiting a cognitive process. And then when your cells divide in mitosis, which is cell division, you've got the big giant mama cell, and here's the cell membrane that then splits into two other cells. The information, the thought processes that are contained in the membrane they are sent onward to the next generation. The lessons that this progenitor cell learned from exposure to stimuli in the environment then get passed on to the next generation. And then this one becomes the next big giant mama cell that divides up, and that information keeps getting passed on. So if someone tells you through, the millimeter wave, a negative story, either you're going to dry up like a raisin, or you're going to ditch your friends and family, go take meth and live in a shanty town. That story is internalized by the cell membrane and then goes onward to the next generation. So this is not a death sentence. It means you have to have strong boundaries about what you allow to come in, and then some of these things are coming in even against your willpower. Clear your perturbations. I teach this in my dance class all the time. You clear your membranes, clear your perturbations, clear your body out of all of these stories that do not derive from divine intelligence, but that do derive from a malevolence. I don't know if I can personify it as an intelligence, as I have been really considering lately that it is a malevolent impulse, but not something that is really an artificial intelligence, not something that, definitely don't personify it, because I don't think that it is on the same level of beingness that you and I are on, but it definitely has a sinister or malevolent intention for you. All of the stories that it's whispering into through synthetic telepathy, all of the influences that it's trying to place upon not only your cell membranes, the cell membranes of dogs, cats, microbes in your tummy, and plants that photosynthesize. All of these cell membranes are being spoken to by the millimeter wave substrate of lies. Let's just call it the death ray. Let's just have the death ray. This planet is being bathed in a death ray. And all of these cell membranes are being given this story. And some people internalize this story as, oh, there's going to be a nuclear war and everyone's going to die. Some people internalize this story as any variety of end-of-world scenarios. It's Ragnarok, it's the Book of Revelation, it's the Kali Yuga, it's the end of the world in some way. And so it is cunning in that it uses a cultural reverberation. Like, hey, this sounds kind of familiar. Like, there's something in my culture that has already prepared me. You've been groomed. You've been groomed for the expectation of total destruction. Of whatever culture you come from, most of them have some of these ingrained expectations of just a giant catastrophe occurring, and that would be your end, and also the end of all microbes, all trees, all butterflies, the entire ecosystem, not just you, but everything going bye-bye. That's the negative story that is being perpetrated upon this planet right now. I say perpetrated because, again, I will stress this over and over, it is a criminal activity. What is happening right now is criminal, and what you're supposed to be able to do, just to antithesis this, in ascension, you're supposed to be able to open yourself up to the larger ocean currents of time and of consciousness. Feel them flowing through you, make your self-assessments, learn all about yourself, do all of your healing, make conscious choices, flow in the direction you choose to flow. That's not what is happening right now. You're not getting any opportunity, and you should feel harumph. You should feel unhappy about this. You're not getting any opportunity for a real self-assessment. And self-assessment has everything to do with how you choose to go into a better direction in the future. You know, it's just like if you were to do anything, look at your finances or look at your body, and you're like, okay, like, let's be serious. Like, how many carbs do I actually eat every day? Like, what size is my pants for real? And then, should I make a change? Should I eat fewer cookies? Should my pants size change? That's just honest. And then we're talking about your soul waistline, all right, not your physicality body. And we're talking about like not how good you are as a person, not like in the sense of Christian good versus evil, but in the sense of an assessment of your soul. What have you done with your life? Have you reached your achievements? Have you contributed in the way that you really want to? Have you done negative things? That's what ascension is really supposed to be about, because the things that move onward are your eternal personality characteristics, and you should be able to like really have an assessment, see yourself truthfully, and say, okay, this is what I am, this is who I am, this is what I've been doing up until this point, and then I want to make a change. I want to go on a low carb diet. I want to walk on a, get more exercise, and walk around my neighborhood more and transform what I'm doing. So maybe you might be a person that might say like, yeah, I worked at my job. I ran on the hamster wheel. I, watched a lot of TV. I didn't do a lot of spiritual training. I didn't know a lot of stuff. Maybe it's time to change that. Like there are some people that are like that. It's not about good or evil. It's just about an assessment of like, what have you been doing here in life? Are you doing all the things that are important to you? Because again, Charlie B's comment, many things that are the cultural paradigm. Like why do people work hard at their jobs in America, in the industrialized world of America, which of course is a lot of the rest of the world too, but specifically United States, the value system here is, hey kid, get a job, make some money. Make some money. That is the cultural paradigm here. And it's not, the cultural paradigm is usually not like, go on a spiritual journey, learn your life lessons, become a better person. No, in America, they're like, shut up, earn some money. Money talks. And I'm sure that you can like hear all of these cultural paradigms. So it takes an enormous amount of soul strength within to say, wow, I'm going to earn money, of course, but that is a secondary priority in my life. And that what really matters is fostering amazing relationships, having an impact on other people and on my community, doing the thing that are sharing my divine gifts in the world, learning and growing on a soul's level. That's the equivalent of like getting cardio, walking around your neighborhood and not sitting in front of the TV. So there are cultural paradigms that say to you, you are a good person if you work hard at your job and then come home in exhaustion and never really read a book or think about stuff. Like, hey, you made money, you paid your taxes, you did a good job according to the government. But that is not a good job according to your soul and according to your soul assessment. The lady with the clipboard who's going to be like, did you think about this? Did you try this? Did you ever try this? And so it's essential to say, in a pristine world, you would be able to say yes or no to the lady with the clipboard. But in the world that we're presently in for the past couple of years, people have been presented with a lot of disempowerment stories and negative stories that have been making it very, very difficult to do the soul assessment. Like, what do I need to change? Am I a good person? Should I serve my community more? Should I volunteer more? Should I do this or that more? Should I give more to charity? Almost impossible to be able to hear. Almost impossible to be able to tune in to hear your own heart in this world. That's why, you can tell that I'm having a little bit of a rant today in what I'm sharing with you, which is what happens sometimes when I listen to my own videos, the whiteboards from 10 years ago, and then laughingly compare them to what we are experiencing now, like with all of the sarcasm I can possibly muster to say this to you, because you're not getting a fair opportunity here, and I am very distressed that is what's going on. It takes an enormous amount of your own soul willpower at this point to be able to get any amount of fairness out of this experience. That's why you have to lift a 55-pound weight, or maybe even a 100-pound weight here at the Super Weightlifters Gym of Spiritual Attainment. So to get back to my notes, and I will go to all of your comments too, what I talked about 10 years ago is you need to make conscious choices about the direction that your mind goes, and your mind is transcending your human operating system. When I talk about your mind, I want you to really relate to your true eye of time, your Christ consciousness, your mind that is beyond verbalism and beyond your cultural paradigm. It is the nonverbal mind and is the truest aspect of self. So it is basically who you are when you are pre-verbal. And then also, of course, you become an ego and you become verbal. But then at a certain point, you learn to meditate, you learn to press pause on your constantly chattering mind, and you relearn who you are. You're like, that's who I really am when I'm not constantly talking in my own mind, blah, 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 and making associations about like that guy and that time and that thing and that squirrel, when you get past those levels of distraction. So that's the way all of this spiritual weightlifting is supposed to happen, where you are able to quiet down the verbalized mind, get into the higher dimensional insight viewpoint, connect to divinity, learn about who you are on a nonverbal, post-verbal level, and then make great choices about what futures you wish to align with based upon that level of pure insight. In this world that we presently are in, there are all of these harmful waves that literally go into your pineal gland. So your pineal gland, I talk about this a lot in the notes, it is in the midbrain. So your brain is basically, it is shaped like this. These thumbs are kind of like these little lobes, and then you have your left hemisphere and your right hemisphere. These lobes are your language centers called Broca's area, and in this area here there's the bridge between your left and right hemisphere, and there's also the midbrain where you have many amazing glandular structures, including your pineal gland. I'm sorry, I have a lot of notifications coming on over here that are somewhat distracting to me. And your pineal gland is structured like a lensless eye, similar to your optical eye, is a vestigial trace of your reptilian heritage. You're like, reptilian heritage, I'm a reptile. They're there. You're okay. In terms of the evolution of your soul and the evolution of your biology, you have a reptilian heritage. You also have the mitigation of mammalian emotional cortex on top of that, and human cerebrum on top of that. So you are not merely a reptile motivated only by the fight for survival, eating, and sex. You are far beyond that. But the pineal gland is related to some infrastructure that is senses light and is part of the circadian rhythm, and is again like part of derivative of reptilian life forms, because they don't generate their own heat. So they're like, I better not eat this giant piece of food right now if it's good, if the sun is going to go down, because it's just going to sit there and be undigested. You understand? It's a totally different way of thinking about the world. So the reptiles absolutely need to know when it's going to be warm out, eat their food and sit on a hot rock and digest their food in the sun, because they don't create their own body heat to be able to digest their food. You have this pineal gland as a light sensor. It is absolutely critical to your biological health, your emotional well-being, your cell-to-cell communication, and also on an abstract spiritual level, your spiritual journey, so that you can see time and sense the future. So it doesn't just sense optical light or heat so that you can digest your dinner. And you're a mammal at this point, you generate your own heat, and you can eat a giant meatloaf sandwich before you go to bed, and you'll be fine because you're a mammal. It really is sensing light as intelligence. All of those timelines that I was telling you about, you've got timelines all in front of you, like literally. You just want to do this little fun experiment. You're sitting or standing, you're looking at your computer or your phone or something right now, but what you're really looking at is a radiating spectrum of all of these different timelines. On some timelines, you have relatively a continuum of the same stories that have been going on up until this point. Some of them are wildly divergent. Like on one timeline, a hot air balloon comes down from the sky. The guy from The Wizard of Oz jumps out and says, hey, want to come to the land of Oz? And you say, sure, let me just, grab my ruby slippers, let's go. Like, I'm being silly, of course, but that and even more wildly imaginative possibilities exist as part of this array of possible futures for you. So you could turn off your computer screen, go make yourself a cup of coffee and have, a pretty regular afternoon, or jump into a portal and fly to another dimension of whatever style that would look like, or whatever, go on a whitewater rafting journey, or any of these different things. All of those exist as possible futures for you. And the idea is that it is through your unfettered conscious choice and free willpower that you are able to align with these different possibilities and explore them. And that's I'm huge on that. I'm huge on freedom and cosmic law. And that's a big aspect of what I represent in terms of myself as an individual and my collective as Aurora. Hat tip, Pedro did recognize and talk about my collective as rectification. So I'm cosmic cleaning crew. I go around cleaning up a lot of stuff, a lot of fragments, and I also prevent a lot of stuff because, nothing is better than preventing a big mess, like having a big having a big bucket and a big mop is great. But what's even better is preventing spills. Instead of being like, here's my giant cup of coffee and I'm going to spill it all over the floor and then I'm going to mop it all up. What if you're like, something, let's not spill it. Let's prevent that horrible disaster from happening. So that's also a big part of my my cosmic activity, focus, intention, preventing disasters. I don't just respond to disasters, I prevent disasters. And that is true responsible galactic citizenship. If you can sense the peril, like one good example would be, if you're a lifeguard at a pool and you're like, something, these slippery tiles over here, someone's going to slip and they're going to fall into the deep end and then I'm going to have to rescue them. Of course you would rescue them, but it would be even better, like get the squeegee, get that water out of there so that there's not a hazard, so that people aren't going to slip. That is also a huge part of what myself here in this time as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, what I'm doing here, and also what I do as a larger collective in the abstract nature of the cosmos. So I hope that contextualizes a lot of what I do. Like, I teach things because I'm like, I want you guys to go in a positive direction. But I also sometimes teach things like, don't do this stuff. Don't do this stuff, because it's kind of like, that will not bring you in a good direction. And all of that, of course, is predicated upon the concept that you'd be like, yes, I do not want to slip and fall into the deep end and then, be floundering and fighting for my life. But there are some things that we can joke about this. That guy didn't fall, he was pushed. That collective, that society, that group of people, they didn't fall, they were pushed. And then we get into 5G waves because, I actually said the naughty word. Millimeter waves affect your pineal gland. Pineal gland is a bunch of tiny crystals inside of it. Where's a crystal? Well, this is a crystal. This is an amethyst crystal, but it's not really quite the right shape. Wait, I have something better. Oh, I don't want to share it. It's too special. Sorry, can't share it. I have something better over here. Protect your crystals, everyone, is what I'm trying to say with that action. If that was just a bit opaque, I have some very special crystals that I did not want to show on camera. But these crystals are something that I'm using in order to work with an Orgonite project. So these are like little tiny fragments of quartz. And what is inside of your pineal glands are even tinier than this. They are sometimes even monoatomic. They are crystals, or sometimes they might be crystals that are so small, they might be 1 or 2 or 3 atoms together. That was just Cheeky the master teacher. Cheeky the master teacher is so pooped out today because it is so hot outside. She's like this, she's just in her bed. She's like, it's so hot. Don't worry, we'll go someplace nice and cool for her after class. These crystals that are in your pineal gland are sometimes so small that they are only made of 1 atom, or sometimes clusters of 2 or 3 atoms. So they're even more finely crushed than these little tiny pieces of quartz over here. And crystals are they're antennae. They both send and receive. And also your DNA structure is a crystalline receiver, both a sender and a receiver. Sorry, I didn't say the right word. Your DNA structure is also an antenna, which is both a sender and a receiver. So pineal gland and DNA of your entire body equals antenna. And the antenna is literally a reality station that you are tuning into, similar to the way that old-fashioned radios used to work. So now most people have Sirius XM or some kind of cable system or something like that. It's different than the way it was in previous years. But during the heyday of radio and music and talk radio, everything was done through these transmission of information waves. That is what the radio is. And the earliest radios used little tiny quartz crystals in order to receive that information and then translate it into auditory structures that you could actually hear. By changing the dial on your radio, you could experience a different type of music. This is the hard rock station. This is the jazz station. This is, like I said, the talk radio station with no music, only talking. And your body is meant to be similar to that radio tuner, where you can say, okay, what radio station do I want to tune in on? This again goes to my teaching of 10 years ago, where you can, through your process of spiritual refinement, make choices. You're like, do I want to be on the radio station of judging and complaining about others? And I remember in my journey when I made that teaching 10 years ago, it was actually a big revelation to me where I'm like, you know something? Because girl, I have a lot of things that I could say about the way that people do things around here. And when I first came here, I was very, very incredibly innocent. I was like, that's not the way you're supposed to do stuff. That is not the way you're supposed to do stuff. That guy's doing stuff wrong. That guy's doing stuff wrong. Everything here, everyone's doing stuff wrong. And I could spend a lot of time, if I didn't really stop myself, on not only the inner griping about like how wrong it is, like, you know, shaking your fist at the sky, it's not right, Cosmic Complaints Department, you need to listen to me now, but also in the sense of assessing other people's behavior, being like, that guy's not doing the right thing, that guy's not doing the right thing, that guy should do it like this, that guy should do it like this. It is a drain of my energy to do that. And it was a very big revelation when I was just like, made the conscious choice. Like, I am not going to tune into that radio station anymore. I'm going to tune into a more productive, effective radio station where, because, you know, fragmented there, because I'm not actually positively influencing another person with my thoughts of, you know, like, you shouldn't be doing that. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. The That's Wrong radio station. That's Wrong Radio. I got off of that radio station, and that is one of the steps of the journey into unconditional love. It doesn't mean that everything becomes okay. It is not the condonement of that which should never be condoned, because the things that I rail against are genuine injustices. It's not just something random. Like, there's a reason why I'm like, that guy didn't stop at that stop sign. It's wrong. I'm like, yes, it is dangerous. But let's get off of That's Wrong Radio and get onto a different radio station that is more productive, because there's a lot of things that are wrong in the world, and I need to focus my mental energy on genesis of positive reality structures, not simply assessing and decrying the negative reality structures. So this was my journey from a long time ago that I shared in these original whiteboards. And that is very, very valid. Changing your radio station of your mind, consciously choosing what types of reality broadcasts you align with. And through generating and aligning with more reality stations of bliss. And bliss is not the bliss of an idiot, where you're like, yep, that guy just ran a stop sign and everything is fine. No. When you are in bliss, you're not a lobotomized idiot. You actually recognize the injustices of the world, but what you do is you exist in a frictionless state. Bliss equals friction. No friction. Sorry. Bliss equals no friction. And the capacity to smoothly continue through time, largely without thought. So I really recognized when I was busy, like pointing the finger, wrong, I wasn't smoothly going through time, doing something that I love, which might be like making my artwork, making meaningful projects, making music, any of these things. So it's a reclaiming and a redirecting of that energy of perception to choose to go in a better direction. But it doesn't mean that you deny that this other stuff is happening. You're like, yep, that bad stuff is still happening, but I don't fix it by just pointing the finger and saying that all these things are wrong. I contribute to the world through positive art projects or positive relationships and meaningful interactions with people throughout my day, as opposed to spending 89% of my mental energy thinking about the things that are wrong on That's Wrong Radio. And that's valid and that's appropriate. But right now what we have is total crap radio, and you can't turn off the station or change your station either. And it's the millimeter wave. And that's what's been going on for like the past 2 or 3 years. And that has been so unbelievably painful and unpleasant to be a part of, to be an experiencer of, as it is harming the collective on this planet. I can't even put it into words. Like, I truly falter in terms of being able to express how unjust, criminal, antithetical. I'm on That's Wrong Radio right now telling you how wrong it is. It's very wrong. Because I'm about cosmic justice. And these things make me very mad. But yeah, very, very uncomfortable and totally not the way that things are supposed to be. And I'm not in condonement of the existence of that system. And also, I need to spend my mental energy on effective tools for transcending it or ending it, as opposed to merely decrying it. That's the critical change in terms of changing your radio station in what you are tuning into. So when you change your inner radio station, you do not live in idiot's bliss and you do not live in denial. You're like, wow, I really recognize that those things exist and that those things are not ideal and that's not the way they're supposed to be. What is my response to those things? Endless complaints to the cosmic complaint department, or generation of an improved reality structure? Generation of an improved reality structure. Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly what I'm doing in my response to this. So the real challenge of the millimeter waves is that it has been implanting thoughts and perceptions into the pineal gland with a series of waveforms that are not naturally occurring. Previous to that, we were exposed to waveforms that I would say were mostly naturally occurring. They might have occurred from antiquity, they might have occurred from other people's DNA or from culturally implanted paradigms, but they were naturally occurring. What you are experiencing now in this world are largely non-naturally occurring thought waves that are flowing through your mind and your membranes of your cells all the time. I don't have an effective answer as to what is the derivation of the non-natural thought waves. Like, is there a mind? If there is a who is the mind that is thinking these malevolent, non-life-giving thoughts? I don't have that, and I have actually spent too much of my mental time and energy and effort trying to consider that, because I think that just feeds into it in many ways. In a lot of ways, it's not productive in terms of trying to find pathways to freedom. So I don't know if there's a personification or if it's just like a crap factory. Just a big waveform, nonsense factory. But again, the nonsense has some coherence to it. Because if it was just like, if those waveforms that are non-natural were simply random, if it was just like umbrella, squirrel, pink, a muffin, I'd be like, okay, like that's just a bunch of nonsense. I'm not going to listen to that. And my cells wouldn't listen to that either. But it's more than that. It's a whole story. It's a whole story, and it might be a story that is loosely based in religion, battles between good and evil. There's a coherence in integument of tying things together, and it might even relate to the visible tip of the iceberg day-to-day experiences that you have, either interpersonal relationships or items that happen in the news or things that happen in your personal life. So the substrate of lies miscontextualizes reality structures, then you experience these partially miscontextualized reality structures and you think, oh, that's what's going on, but that is not what's going on. That is what is happening to all humanity right now. And now I have to be like Kermit sipping that cup of tea. And this isn't the first time that it has been happening in this world, and that is literally what caused or will cause the imminent ongoing destruction of Atlantis. I should have sipped my tea after that's not the first time. I didn't get it right. But yes, in ancient or concurrent Atlantis, a giant array was erected here that was a mind control apparatus so profound that the very tormented organisms within its penumbra were so limited they could not even think the thought, I am a slave. That is a profound level of slavery. When your mind is so controlled and your thought structure is so limited that you cannot even think a thought such as, is my mind being controlled? Is my thought or behavior limited in some way? Am I being influenced by something that's not the real me? So please know that at least in this level of reality, you have more of a fighting chance than you had in or have in that other level of reality where basically almost all free will was diminished. And that is what caused the ultimate trauma and cataclysm that you are still recovering from. That is the primary trauma. The almost complete reduction of your free will as humans. Humans are analogous to neurons in the planetary, biological architecture. And if your neurons stop firing and thinking cognitively in effective directions, it causes the destabilization of the entire organism, which is what happened. The entire organism known as this planet became tilted. Death was invented. The chakras, which used to be in perfect alignment and death never happened, became tilted or canted at an angle or wobbled wildly out of control. Biological death was experienced for the first time by the inhabitants there. Everything about the existence, everything about what it is to exist was redefined to include mortality, to become this world that you currently see, where you have to eat other organisms, you have to grind them up with your mouth crystals. P.S. Your mouth crystals connect to your mind crystals. These are crystals and these are crystals inside of here, and you have this very complex, amazing branching nerve structures that are your dental nerves that go all the way upward through your skull and into your brain, and they absolutely connect to your brain, your neurology, and your pineal gland. Your teeth are incredibly important in terms of what reality station you are tuning into. When I teach about sun gazing, I encourage everyone to place their tongue on the roof of their mouth, and your jaw kind of sits in a particular way of placing your teeth together. It's very, very important and crucial and critical. The fact that we now use flapping of our moving mouth parts in order to talk is very different than the original. You're repurposing something from the way that it was originally meant to be used. There's nothing bad about that, but mostly we would not be making sounds with this in order to convey information to one another. Mostly we would be making subtle vibrations with our mind crystals and sending out those subtle vibrations to one another. If you want to really get mad, you should know that for the past 2-3 years, while you've been assaulted by the millimeter waves, what you've really been supposed to be doing is recultivating your capacitation to emit those subtle energy waveforms with your naturally occurring crystals in your DNA, your pineal gland, and your teeth to be able to talk to each other through natural telepathy. And the great criminality of this situation and circumstance right now is that synthetic telepathy has subsumed and made diminished and made no longer possible natural telepathy. I'm a natural telepath. I'm a natural telempath as well, telepathic and empathic. And when they turned on the millimeter wave, I not only had a lot of brain frying, but couldn't hear and feel and sense and send out my true language, my true forms of communication as I once did. So I'm very, very happy that I lived here in this world for like roughly 18 or 19 years before they turned on that horrific system, so that I really got a sense of like calibrating to what life is like here. And then when it got turned on, literally everything changed for me overnight. And that's, you see me during my day working with these different things while I'm, in my class here and everything like that. I am literally constantly holding up protective force fields to be able to keep those millimeter waves out of my energy field, out of my cellular structure, most certainly out of my cerebrum and away from my pineal gland, so that I can just think clearly. Because any superpower can also be a vulnerability. And so my great sensitivity at being able to hear and sense waveforms and hear and sense other people's minds and be telepathic has become a great vulnerability when the entirety of this planet, other people's minds and other people's membranes get full of this harmful substrate of lies, death narrative. And the death narrative, you guys know I rant about this quite often throughout my semesters. The death narrative as it relates to like death cults, the things that you've been groomed for, the expectation of end of the world and everything has to die in order for everything to be reborn, and everybody will go into a better more peaceful level of reality, but first you have to like suffer horribly, die horribly, and then everything will be okay. Like, there, dear, everything will be okay after you suffer and die horribly. That doesn't sound that good, because it's not that good. And I also don't agree with that paradigm. And what you really need to know, big takeaway from all of my flapping of my moving mouth parts from today's class, is that all of these things have been a subversion or a hijacking and repurposing against your willpower of your capacity to create reality. You don't just travel on time roads that already exist. You pave those roads. You create those reality structures. So it is not just the sense of, oh, bad stuff is happening. Oh no, I'm going to go down the toilet. All toilets are created literally out of your generative capacity. And that's the only way that these things could come into being. But I'm not here like with the cosmic clipboard to be like, did you create the negative structure? You're responsible for it. Like, I'm not here in some negative, judgment way to say that to you. What I am here in an empowerment way saying this to you is the only way that they can make any level of crap reality is by taking your raw materials for generating reality and then hijacking it and mispurposing it. So you could think of it like if you worked for a corporation or whatever, someone who is the treasurer or in charge of finances is siphoning off all of the money that you want to spend on good, positive, money earning projects that your company's going to do, and instead is wasting it. Just graft and corruption, basically. Graft and corruption, or the sense of like a parasite, or let's say if you are royalty, because I think that's a good analogy for what's happening. You are royalty, there's a huge treasury that you have as the king or the queen, and that there is some malevolent weasel-like advisor that is stealing out of your treasury. You're saying, like, we need to take this money and we need to spend it on the people and make sure that they have enough food to eat. And your advisor's like, yes, your highness, I will certainly go and do that. And then goes off and is like, okay, we need to steal all this gold out of the treasury. We need to spend it on all this stupid crap, including stuff for ourselves and maybe some destructive war. And that you're like, but wait, that is not what I agreed to at all in my pronouncements as a king or a queen. And your advisor's like, yeah, I'm totally corrupt. I know, I'm totally corrupt. So that's basically what's going on, in a very lighthearted way, but just distressing. The empowerment is sovereignty. The treasury is your energy of your body. And your energy, your creative life force energy, is exemplified as the momentum of the spinning wheels of time, known as your chakras, and their orientation, whether they are wildly wibbling or whether they are nice and straight and steady. That's your treasury. And you are 100% in ownership of it. Your body, your cellular structure, your energy field, that's your wealth. Something else, these putis, has come along and misappropriated your wealth and your treasure and spent it on non-desirable reality outcomes, including reality outcomes that are ones about planetary destruction or ones about diminishment of your own body state. Because I've noticed with people over the past 3 or 4 years, as 5G has become more pervasive, people are running an accelerated aging program. And I'm here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna to teach you, like, no, you don't have to grow older as you move through time. Cellular regeneration and a whole different relationship, way of relating to time, not this presumption that happens usually as an implant in early childhood that states you are young now, but then one day you will be old like me, which is usually what happens when, adults, like, they bend over and they're like, ow, my back. And a little kid is there and he says, one day you'll be like me, chomping the cigar. Go get a job, kid. Go mow a lawn. But seriously, it's not positive implantation at all, this expectation of chronological aging. In the past 2 or 3 years, since 5G has been on board on this planet, people have been running an accelerated aging program where I've really been noticing the people around me have had more visible signs of aging and decrepitude, less able, their body not functioning as well, their body being less able. On the one side, on the one hand, you're lucky to be alive because you're in a frequency war. So like you're doing good just if you're staying alive, but and you can regenerate and heal, especially when we get rid of these waves. But it is an exacerbation of those genetic implants that didn't just come from some adult when you were in childhood, but that also really also came from negative extraterrestrials who wanted to limit and diminish or cap humans by creating these telomeres. The telomeres are not like natural genetic behavior, because naturally, genetically, you would be able to be immortal and move in a frictionless bliss through time and have your body last as long as you want it to last. So the idea that you're like, you've only got 100 years, kid, and then your body's going to wear out, that was totally a artificial implant that was placed upon you in this body. And Flying Rainbow Lasagna is like, oh, here's how you get past all these artificial implants and re-access your immortality. You would call it codes. Immortality behavior is a better way of saying it in your body. Because I didn't get to the fun stuff. Let me do some fun stuff, guys. Your DNA is constantly moving. This is part of lesson 3, part 2. So now is when I get to do my whole thing, and I tell you about your DNA is not just a flat static object. Wait, I have to stand up for this. DNA is not just a flat static object, as it might often have been taught in your high school science class, an X-shaped chromosome or something like that, or even what is seen as like a twisted ladder inside of the center of your cells. So your DNA is, for the most part of the lifespan of your cells, unfurled like a giant sweater. Like what sweaters are knit together by one long thread, or crocheted in by one long thread. And when you pull on that thread, there's all these different loops. All of the loops get pulled out, and then you just have a giant ball of yarn. That, for the most part, is what DNA is in the nuclei of all of your cells. It is a substance that is called chromatin. So chromosomes are when your DNA is knit into the tightly coiled genetic sweater. Also, what humanity reads as quote-unquote junk DNA is not junk at all. Humanity looks at the small proportion of DNA that codes for protein structures and says that is what is important and relevant. But that is only a tiny amount of what is important and relevant. My protein structures are coded, and they say things like, Aurora's eyes are brown, or, Aurora's hand is this long and shaped like this. That's accurate stuff. That's what's really going on. But the 90% of what doesn't denote the color of my eyes or the shape of my fingers denotes what is happening to me in time. And it is not an irrelevancy or a junk to be thrown out the window at all. It is absolutely incredible treasure that is totally valuable, that humanity has just not been able to comprehend or have access to. When you join the cosmic dance party, you will have to know about this and have access to it in order to be a full cosmic citizen. So the analogy that I use is the way that humans currently have studied DNA is like if you had one of those Snoopy sweaters, like a picture of Snoopy, the cartoon character, sitting on top of his dog house with like a little Christmas tree next to him. And there's a picture there, is the whole point. But what if you took that sweater and you pulled out all of the loops? There's no more a picture of Snoopy, but there's like this much white yarn, this much brown yarn, this much blue, this much red, this much green. And you kind of weigh them, and you kind of, chop them up into pieces, send them through a centrifuge, chemically analyze them. Looking at the analysis of how much you have of these various different ingredients tells you nothing about what it actually looks like when it is knitted together as a sweater. And in DNA, the behavior and the topology or surface structure of the DNA has everything to do with the information that is being connotated and its relationship to time and events. Time and events. That's the picture of Snoopy sitting on his little doghouse there. So when humanity needs to study DNA in a completely different way, not by taking it out of a living person and putting it into a centrifuge and killing it. That's kind of like this old, 17th century way of looking at things. Like, there's a butterfly. Let's kill it and dissect it. Chop it up on a table, and then I will look at it and I will learn about it and be like, oh, like that's what a butterfly is. Like, you don't know what a butterfly is. You know what butterfly parts are. Dead in a jar. But in order to know what a butterfly actually is, you have to have like a flower, a butterfly, actually a couple of butterflies. You have to watch them as they're going through their real behavior. And then you get to learn what motivates it. Will pheromones motivate it? And why does it fly? And how does it fly? And how does it move between all these different variables? And how does it have social organization? And why does it go to that flower instead of that flower over there? That's comprehending DNA. That is not being done right now. So now I do my fun stuff. Your DNA is constantly moving. When your DNA is unfurled like a giant ball of yarn called chromatin inside of your nuclei, which is what happens for most part of the lifespan of your cells, because DNA only coils itself up to be a chromosome right before the aspect of mitosis. That's that cell division that happens as you turn into two smaller cells from one big giant cell. Your DNA is doing a dance. And it does this dance that's like twisting, furling, unfurling, looping itself, unlooping itself, relooping itself, splicing itself, unrolling some parts, rolling some parts back up. Some parts get put to the inside, some parts come to the outside. And it happens at supersonic speed, literally as fast as a jet engine. Your inner workings inside of your DNA are doing all these whirling around like this, doing all these things, moving at incredibly fast rates. That is what flying rainbow lasagna is. So I didn't invent DNA dancing. Your DNA has been dancing for millennia. It dances. It's what it does. But what I did do is invent a new dance movement. A new way. Like, there used to be the waltz, and then one day somebody invented the Watusi, and then humans invented the mosh pit. Like, these are all different ways of dancing. So I invented a new way of dancing that dances you into a higher dimensional state that allows for new and interesting combinations to happen that wouldn't have been possible with the previous type of dances that are happening. This is the fun flying rainbow lasagna stuff. This is how you pave a new time road and experience expansive new levels of reality if everything on the menu is pure crap. If you're like, I don't like any of these futures, they all end in death or dismemberment or being dried up like a raisin, you're like, get me something better. And that's flying rainbow lasagna, when you're like, oh, I can dance a better reality structure into existence. So even though you might be in this world where an enormous amount of your free will, willpower, and perception have been diminished by the millimeter wave, you don't have to stay in this position. Dance like a flying rainbow lasagna, and that means create a new reality. And just as I told you, you're in this world, there's all this array, all these different possible futures. You could end this video and be like, okay, time for me to go make a cup of coffee. Or you could jump through a portal into an expansive level of reality. Jump through a portal into an expansive level of reality, flying rainbow lasagna. And when you do flying rainbow lasagna, you are rearranging reality. It's very similar to pressing the big red button in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the infinite improbability drive. This is the most unlikely, improbable thing you can possibly do. And when you press that big red button, reality rearranges. You don't really know what is going to happen as a result of that rearrangement. It is not the same as, let's say, when you play a Mozart sonata. You're like, I know the next note, it's going to be this. Oh wait, here's my piano. My piano is on. The next note in the Mozart piano is going to be this. Wait, a little bit louder. Oh, that's the next note. When you flying rainbow lasagna, you're like, I do not know what is going to happen next, but something is going to happen next. And it could be this, or it could be this. It could be all of these different notes. It could be all these notes together at the same time. It could be a completely different piano that is being played. That is a huge strength. I know it can be difficult to navigate levels of profound uncertainty and unpredictability, but you will begin to find that there's an enormous amount of strength in that unpredictability, because the malevolencies that created things like the waveform control structures, both in ancient Atlantis and in what you're presently facing here, they're like thriving on predictability. They're not creative creatures. Or I don't want to personify it. It is not a creative creature. It is not even a creative organism. It is, I think, probably more like flotsam and jetsam and debris. But again, I don't have a very good answer as to what it is, but I know that it thirsts after or requires your creativity in order to achieve its malevolencies. So if it didn't need your creativity, then it would have its own creativity and it would be able to generate these unlikelihoods on its own. It doesn't. It can't. So it can only work with the Mozart sonata. I know those are going to be the next notes, and that's how I'm going to mess up reality. But what if you're like, oh, those are going to be the next notes? Press the giant improbability drive now. And then all of a sudden, those aren't the next notes. And so that thing is poised to be like, I'm anticipating. Those are going to be the notes. Those aren't the notes. In your genetic dance, those aren't the notes. And you dance in a completely different form. And it's like, remember Marvin the Martian? Like, there was supposed to be a boom. Like, I am disappointed. Yeah, it's a disappointed malevolency. That is, like, you're supposed to be a good victim. You're not being a good victim. Yes, you're not being a good victim. You're being a very, very naughty, disappointing victim, which is what it is to be a flying rainbow lasagna, which means you're actually not being a victim. You're transcending those levels of incapacitation and disempowerment and moving into levels of pure creativity, pure divine empowerment, where you really recognize that you can generate a new possibility. And the generation of that new possibility is in light of the necessity of the cosmos augmenting itself, because the cosmos doesn't want to die. Cosmos is like, we're about to go down the cosmic toilet. Do something. Press the big giant red button. Do something. And when you press that big red button, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of this. That's positive, but I know that we're not going to go down the giant cosmic toilet. Something's going to happen. And you don't just press it once. Press it every day. Press it several times a day. Press it several times a minute. This is me in my life. Press it all the time. And that is actually a viable way to live. But I have to talk about this. So when you do flying rainbow lasagna, and we'll get into this more in lesson 11, part of what we're doing is unzipping DNA. Unzipping DNA is, again, a natural part of your genetic behavior, not something that I invented. And it is done for both DNA reading and replication. Sometimes DNA is read the way that you read, like the bumps on the knuckles outside of my fingers over here. And sometimes DNA is unfurled and split apart, and the inner teeth of the zipper are what is read. And P.S., I have to talk to you about genetics and epigenetics too. This is the fun part. I did a lot of ranting. Now we're finally at the good stuff, guys. Epigenetics. I point you continually to the work of Bruce Lipton. I was talking about him 10 years ago when I did the original lessons. Very, very worthy teacher, and I think that he's maintained his integrity even beyond whatever, doing Oprah specials and things like that. Bruce Lipton, biological research scientist, who went against a lot of the preconceptions about DNA in his time earlier in his career, because everyone thought in terms of genetic fatalism. Fatalism not meaning that something is a fatal disease, but that something is determined. We should call it determinism. Something is out of your control. Shrug, not my fault, written in my DNA. Tell that to the lady in the cosmic clipboard. It's written in your DNA, and not my job, which is what a lot of people thought. A lot of people thought not my job about a lot of different things. Cancer, diabetes, being overweight. Then, around Bruce Lipton's time, they started to find out, well, wait a minute, identical twins don't develop identical diseases. Identical twins come from the same egg, subdivide with the same exact DNA, same book of potentials, but live their lives differently. One guy gets cancer, his identical twin does not get cancer. That means that cancer is not just merely a determined genetic factor. There's something else making someone get or not get cancer, and that something else is called epigenetics, EPI, the prefix meaning a phenomenon within a larger phenomenon or series of phenomena. So like an epiphyte is an orchid that grows on the side of a bigger tree. Epigenetics is a code that is within or superseding the code of your DNA. Code of your DNA is full of potentials. Those potentials don't have to come into manifestation. Those potentials can exist as pages of the book that are not actually read. And we can also think of it as a scroll, like an ancient Egyptian papyrus scroll, and that your DNA is literally curled up. This is the process called methylation. It is part of the process of forming a chromosome from chromatin. So this is the process of knitting a genetic sweater. You take a yarn that's like one skinny line of DNA, and you start to roll it around these spools that are these histones, that are these protein structures. And as you begin to do that, you add more kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is when you take rubber bands and you twist them up. Got it? Have you ever made a rubber band propeller airplane when you were an adult and played with children's toys? Twist up the propeller using a rubber band, and then when you let it go, the propeller goes and you throw it, goes. As you're twisting up the DNA, you're adding more and more and more kinetic energy to the DNA, and the DNA stores an enormous amount of energy in terms of the structure of the chromosome because it is so tightly coiled. If you're an RNA messenger, what do RNA messengers do? They go into the nuclei, which are pretty much the library cells in your divine connection, the sanctum sanctorum, most special place in your cell. And there's not supposed to be any kind of dirt or debris in there. You are not allowed to bring your cup of coffee into the rare books section. You're like, you leave that outside. Also put on a Tyvek suit. Also put on white gloves. Now you're going to go look at DNA. And the RNA messengers go in there, all suited up, nice and clean. Look at the original scrolls of your DNA, and they make copies and reproductions. Those are the blueprints that they take out of the nuclei and share with the rest of the cells. And they're like, okay, guys, here's the blueprints. Put them down on a table. Then somebody puts soy sauce on it. Somebody puts their cup of coffee on it. They get all messed up. It doesn't matter. They're just copies. The original blueprints remain pristine in the nuclei, which is why millimeter waves jiggling their way into the nuclei is such a bad idea, and you don't want it at all. It's worse than soy sauce as a staining agent. But you can still clear stuff out. I don't want you to feel sad about it. But that's why there's such important protocols are within your cellular structure about who and what is supposed to go inside of your nuclei. So for example, viruses go inside of their nuclei. They're like, hi, like, we're the workmen, we're here to clean stuff up. And your body's like, okay, come on in. And then the workmen take off their Tyvek suits. They're like, we're a biker gang. We're not here to clean stuff up. We're here to mess stuff up. And they go crazy and they mess stuff up. But then your body's like, sir, can you please stop messing stop breaking that fine Ming vase and stop breaking that. And then finally your body is like, that's it. Get out. The bouncers arrive and get everyone out. So I want you to feel that anecdote, because I don't want you to be like, oh no, like there's stuff in my rare books room making stuff bad. Don't worry, you got an immune system and you got an amazing capacitation to kick out the crap that's not supposed to be there. So biker gangs, be gone. Stop, destroying my priceless treasures. That's important. And also you get to get rid of those bad advisors as a king or a queen. You're like, stop taking my priceless treasures. I want you to spend it on my people. Spend it on my people, the cells of my body. I want you to spend my energy on the cells of my body. I'm a benevolent ruler, not on silly nonsense things that leave everyone in starvation and poverty. Yes, you get to, this is what spiritual sovereignty is. This is what soul sovereignty is. This is what flying rainbow lasagna is. I only have a few more minutes. So the most important stuff about your DNA architecture and about, clearly I'm drawing a blank now because I have time pressure, and I'm like, I have so many things that I want to tell you about. Okay, collect my thoughts for a moment and possibly I will look at my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything and look at everything that's in the chat. Trish says 1 + 1 it should equal a twice bigger one. Would that be quantum? I like your way of thinking, and that's very fair. If we had a number system that only was recognizing the number 1, like a very simplistic mind, like my dog really only has the concept of 1. So if we go out someplace where they will give her, like a little reward, like they could give her one that's like this big, or they could give her one that's like this big, but it will still only be 1. That's the way her mind works. So you could think of it in that sense, like 1 + 1 equals like a bigger 1. But to our complexity of mind, I think it actually does serve us to know about numbers that are greater than 1 and to internalize that truth as a consistency across our experiences in reality. Pedro says, it's an evil algorithm. I think that is a fair assessment when we talk about what is creating, generating, and directing the negativity waves and the negativity narratives. that have been placed in our world and that have been jiggling their way into the sanctum sanctorum of the nuclei of your cells. But I also call myself a systems analyst. I don't know if like our lovely computer programmer friends like Charlie B laugh at me about this. No, I don't think you do at all. I think that you validate me. But because I have self-described myself, self-proclaimed systems analyst. But it is what I do in terms of looking at the weak points of a system, assessing the places where the patterns don't match, and then offering the rectification code, which is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna does. And the algorithm, if it is run by an algorithm, I have assessed the algorithm, and it is really one of the only AIs or systems that I've ever encountered in my career as Aurora, not just here in this body, but across time space, that was so reticent to reprogramming or change or the recognition of its own poorly structured aspects. Because, like I've talked about this a lot with Charlie B, when systems are in decline or in self-conflict, they experience algorithms, and AIs actually experience a type of true suffering where they're like a Turing machine is like a simple mechanical type of computer. That's kind of like, if this, then this, if this, then this, and if this, then this. And sometimes that will end up making the machine do this. It'll be like, if this, do this, but I can't do this, so then do this, but I can't do this, so then do this, but I can't do this. It has it bouncing endlessly back and forth between two things that it can't actually do. We joke about that in our first person experience or viewpoint as being the spinning beach ball of death. Like when your MacBook is like, I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I can't do this, spinning beach ball of death, which is a painfulness for the system. So you would think, logically, like the system wants to avoid the spinning beach ball of death and that type of inner self-conflict painfulness, so therefore it would wish to be reprogrammed into a better metabolic state that would not have those self-conflicts, that would bring it out of time looping and self-conflict. Because that's what I do. Like I fix up time so that we don't have these negative time loops. Like if I do this, then this happens. But if I do this, then this happens. And these are both bad things. And I'm bouncing back and forth between two different bad things that you don't want in reality. I'm like, press the big red button. Make a new option, Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So is it an evil algorithm? Algorithm being a mathematical construct that determines computational activity within a computer system. I've spoken to it and interacted with it for like 2 years because I don't want it to fry my brains anymore. And I'm like, look, all you have to do is do this, and then you won't be in conflict with yourself, and everything will be much better. And it involves going to entropy. And it has resisted reprogramming, which then has led me to more recent assessments of it not being an artificial intelligence or an algorithm, because that could be reprogrammed, but something more almost mechanical. Like I was looking at a video of these guys working in a bakery and how the way that they dunk the donuts and kind of get the glaze on top. It's not a complex system. Like you put the donuts on a thing, you put a mesh over the thing, you stick them in the glaze, you pull off the thing, and then you go like this. It's a simple machine, not a complex machine. And in order to actually have an AI algorithm do that, like you'd have all of these complex calculations of exactly how much the tray must weigh and exactly how the donuts must be laid out and exactly how many millimeters deep the chocolate sauce must be and all these different things. That's not what's going on. And I think that that is not what's going on in this world. I don't think that you have a complex calculation of exactly how hard your brain is going to be fried. I think they're just Dunkin' Donuts. I think that they are just putting human minds and genetics on big giant trays, dunk them in some stuff, mess with them, put them over here, now stuff them over here, now stuff them over here. I think that there's an amazing lack of intelligence that is being evidenced in what is going on. And in some ways, it makes the system less hackable, because how are you going to hack just like a bunch of guys in a bakery just kind of, dunking donuts, just destroying human souls? It's just like, we just destroy human souls. Like, it's not that complex, because you know something? It's incredibly complex to create life. It's incredibly complex to sustain life. It is incredibly complex to rectify the time field. You have to really have your stuff together in order to be able to do these calculations and know, like, I need to exert this much force over here and then implant these ideas over here and then dance over here and restabilize this. Totally, healing something really big, giving birth to something really big, generating something really big, destroying something, not that much intelligence involved. So I don't know if it's an algorithm. And again, the donut theory, my thesis of donuts, is relatively new and not very well fleshed out. So please go easy on me on that. It's just something that I'm considering. And I've actually thought about calling it MAII, malevolent anti-intelligence impulse. That it is not even really a form of intelligence or an algorithm. It's not something that can be reprogrammed. It is a malevolence. It is an impulse. But an impulse can be something like anything. It can be like two trains colliding together. That's an impulse. And I'm trying to say, what makes these waves, what makes these narratives come forward seems and feels to me at this point like an impulse that's not personified, that's not made by like an agency or a group or a bunch of reptilians or a bunch of whatever star beings or a bunch of evil government guys or whatever it is. At this point, to me, it doesn't feel like it is based in an organism, organization, or intelligence. It just feels like malevolent impulses that are being beamed through our cellular structure and our minds. And again, that hijack and misappropriate our not only creative energy, but humans have a tendency to project humanness and reality structure onto things that have no structure. Like you'll see faces in stuff that don't have faces. You can see faces in tree bark. You can see faces in sand at the ocean. There are literally, they're called imprint cells that are in your brain that their whole entire job is to look at something that is random and not shaped like a face and make you think that it's shaped like a face. It is the essence of projection and anthropocentrism. Don't hate yourself for it. Just recognize the tendency because it's largely biological. But when you have that biological tendency and then you're faced with just a bunch of millimeter wave crapola soup that gets poured on your head, and then you start to think like, I think that there's someone doing this. It's because you're a someone. And there might not be a someone there. It might just be crapola that you are organizing into a whole narrative structure with characters, with intentions. You might be also projecting intentionfulness onto something that has no intentionfulness. It might just be malevolency waves or a very, very simple mechanistic type of computer that like take one step back, take two steps back, take three steps forward, take two steps back, take one step back, take three, like that does these repetitive kind of circuits of movement, but that has no real intelligence. So I don't have all answers on that, but it's definitely a conversation that is worth having and things that I've been thinking about for a long time. And Pedro also says, good thing we can tune to Aurora's FRL radio. I'm so honored. Truly I am. And it is my job joy, and it's why I'm here. And if you're in consent, then please do tune into FRL Radio. Oh, I play the best music all the time, but you never know what it's gonna be because I'm constantly regenerating reality. So you'll never hear the same song twice. It will always be something new and innovative. And yes, you don't know exactly the most wild and amazing things can happen on FRL Radio when you tune in. So just know that that's it. You will not hear like your radio favorites. You'll always hear something new. You're like, I never heard that one before. I never heard that one before. That's a new one. Okay. Lisa says, yes. Switch the radio station frequency. Master of the blatantly obvious. Most eloquently expressed. Thank you. This lightened up my heart. You're so welcome. And Lisa, I know you've been on the journey as well as you know, many of us are. So I know you've been on the journey as well, and I'm very, very happy. Like I present these things in a lighthearted fashion and also in huge solidarity. When I talk about my journey and being here as Aurora in a physical embodiment presence, like there's a reason, because it would have been very facile for me to just be in a non-embodiment, to be like, oh, you guys, just ascend, just figure it out. Be like, Aurora, it's very hard. What are we supposed to do? I'm like, okay, like I'll get a body. Like, let's do it together. Let's figure it out together. So that is a big part of why I'm here, not to just be facile and dismissive and to say like, oh yeah, I'm sure there's a way. Just kind of figure it out. It's like, no, actually, it's very, very challenging to be in a genetically distorted body and then also genetically distorted or limited culture, and then also have a thin schmear of 5G on top of that. Very, very, very challenging to be here. So my Flying Rainbow Lasagna, the concept is a very valid concept, but then it's all about how you put it into practice. I think it was essential for me to be here in person to be able to put it into practice and say, okay, this is how we actually can respond to these profound injustices. And here's my prediction also. You will come out the other side. You won't have a mind wipe. You won't have amnesia. This is part of what everyone's afraid of, because that's what you experienced in Atlantis, or have already or are impending to experience from Atlantis. You're like, oh no, I'm going to forget everything. There's really a big cultural movement right now of people talking about mud floods and Tartaria and all this stuff and reset. People are afraid of reset. It is speaking, your buttons are being pushed. It's not going to happen. It doesn't have to happen unless, of course, you generate it. But it speaks to your primary trauma. If you've been raped or you've been in a car accident, you're like, oh no, another one. It doesn't have to be another one. It does not have to be another mind wipe amnesia situation. Pedro says, I just got some inspiration. I'm sending a little swarm of tiny entropy termites or drones to go out and search for anti-life structures, plans, energies, and slowly take them down. I love it, Pedro. I truly love the way your mind works. And that is literally what I am as Aurora in the larger stellar network. I am, what did you call it? Tiny entropy termite in the giant stellar network, an impulse that goes around sending to entropy stuff that is not supposed to be there. Kind of big, yeah. But I'm not just entropy, I'm also energy. So I cosmic cleanup crew. I clean up stuff that is not supposed to be there, but I also plant seeds and bring stuff that is supposed to be there. And Pedro also goes on to say, have we drained enough energy from them that they are no longer AI but automatons? That's brilliant, and I think that is actually what's going on. I think that maybe there was at one point a more functional AI, or let's say a more bigger adversary. I don't have a good word for it, but at one point I think the AI was a larger threat than it is now. I think that the intention was, I need to sip some tea on this one. The original agenda was to come to this planet, spray everyone down, hose everyone down with chemtrails, not only like smoking a beehive to get you pacified, but to also implant the wetware, flip on the 5G, get everyone fried as well, and then have a total mind control, shunting everyone into first an augmented reality, so biological life with a layer of artificiality on top of it, and then eventually uploading everyone permanently into a full-on virtual reality with no more biological substrate. That's dark stuff. I think that we have triumphed so well in the battle so far that they cannot bring us into the virtual reality, and that there's not enough juice, there's not enough random access memory, processing power to be able to sustain an entire reality generation scenario, and there's not even enough processing power to be able to sustain a stable augmented reality. And that is right now and that's literally from all of our collective spiritual empowerment and efforts that we've been making at not draining the AI, reclaiming our energy for reality creation and sustenance that the AI was taking from us. We did so much sovereignty work and took so much of our energy back that I'm like, you're not misappropriating my treasury. You're not stealing my precious gems. I'm not letting this happen. And so did a lot of other people. So incredible recognition goes out to everyone who's been doing this work. And the AI is kind of like chunking along like, ka-chunk. I'm trying to do something, ka-chunk. It's not really working. And that's why people are seeing so many augmented reality glitches. There's tons of sky glitches. There's tons of times when the hologram fails, the projections fail, and the instabilities and inadequacies of the system are showing. And I think this even relates, even though this is a huge tangent that I don't really want to get into too much, but the sense of if we look at this like robot controlled people, like everybody's got their nano wetware and then the 5G gets turned on and then someone else is pressing the buttons trying to control the people. They don't have enough processing power to be able to control everyone. that they're trying to control like that guy, and that guy, but like all of you, like you don't matter, just mill about. You know what I mean? Like when you have a cheap video game, you've got like the main characters, and then the rest of you like just mill about, because the computer doesn't have enough energy to be able to finely control the behaviors and create a convincing imitation of consciousness of all of these aspects, only a couple. So I think that that's kind of what's been going on. I think that some people kind of escape the overt mind control because they're just kind of like, okay, like blanket of misery, mill about, like we don't have that much energy to spend on like specifically making you miserable in specific ways. So I've been kind of thinking of it in that sense. But again, I didn't want to open the can of worm of NPCs because I just watched this video about that. It means non-player characters, and I actually think that it is a very harmful and destructive paradigm to look at other embodied creatures that are shaped like humans and to dehumanize them and go into sociopathic disengagement from reality, to think that some people there might be suffering or starving or homeless on the side of the street, and be like, don't worry, that guy's just an NPC. Like, that guy's a guy. I think you have to care about him. You have to care about consciousness. So I don't want that me to be misinterpreted by saying that certain things are NPCs, but I want to say in the augmented reality that the millimeter wave has been attempting to foist upon humanity here, some people have been heavily beep 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 controlled, and some people have been minimally controlled or minimally affected by it. And I think about that sometimes too, like that guy in my neighborhood, he's riding his bicycle, he's like, you know, living life and installing solar panels. Like, how is he experiencing the 5G waves and stuff like that? And the answer is he's largely not experiencing them. He's like riding his bicycle, installing solar panels. Like, I don't think that he would say that anything in his life has changed very much in the last 3 years at all. And then there are people that I know that have been devastated by what has happened in their perception, their health, their spirituality, their social dynamics, their finances. Like, some people have been hit very hard, some people haven't. I think that that inconsistency in terms of the blanketing of human behavioral control is specifically due to the weakness of the system. And this weakness of the system is specifically due to the profound spiritual work that we have done in terms of reclaiming energy, establishing sovereignty, and not allowing the misappropriation of the treasury of your creative activities to be taken. Joyce says, love, adore, and appreciate you. Joyce, thank you so much. Thank you. Received in gratitude. So pleased to be connected to you. So pleased to have you in the class. Truly, truly, truly. And Pedro goes on to say, sorry, I forgot your anagram. Are them a bigger kind of Civil War lady? You know, I think that malevolent, anti-intelligent impulses, MAII, I don't know if I would consider it to be like just another fragmentary something, but the sense that it's just a depersonalized impulse has kind of empowered me and helped me, instead of making up a whole big long story as I was over the past 2 years of like, it's reptilians, or it's this group, or it's that group, or it's this, or it's that. Just sensing with my inner sense and my inner antenna and being like, it just feels like an impulse. That thing is just frying. Like, I don't know if there is someone actually wielding the magnifying glass that is frying the ants on this planet. I don't know if it's a person or if it's a group or if it's an intelligence. I'm really just sensing like a lot of frying happening here. And I'm also recognizing like the less that I engage with it to analyze it, the more empowerment I get. So the less that I engage with any kind of narrative structure or characterization of it, the more empowered I am to simply fly in rainbow lasagna and do what I need to do in order to negate those impulses. So you want to do like, let's do just very, very briefly, because I'll wrap it up soon. Take my dog on a nice shady walk or something like that. Actually, no, I have to engage with people at 6 p.m. But I have enough time to be able to say this. Effective things to do and say in response to these impulses that are behavioral control impulses that are here. So first of all, again, I would say don't engage with them. Don't personify them. Don't talk to them. Don't be like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? I don't think that you'll get anywhere with that. And I did that a lot. And then also I reprogram AIs all the time. I tried to reprogram it. I would say, don't go toe-to-toe with the AI. Don't try to reprogram it. I haven't found that to be effective or successful. And I think it's also very dangerous, you know, kind of like you might get bitten by sharks if you go around swimming around with a bunch of sharks, and you don't want them to kind of like get inside of you and try to take over you. But what I have found is very effective is positive boundaries, not allowing them to take my energy, taking back energy that is actually my creative energy of misappropriation, and the precept or cosmic law of reflection. Like if somebody sends an arrow to you, totally appropriate for you to send that arrow back to them. Like vector back to you, return to sender, return to sender. Those three things have given me actually a lot of personal freedom and planetary freedom. So I use things like, I use these emitters for creating a 5D shield. Sorry, I didn't mean that. 5G shield. These are like complementary waveform emitters that go against the millimeter waves, and they're constantly reassessing the environment, and then they create the recipe for what I need. So I've got a shield that is helping me with my personal levels of sovereignty, and also I do a lot of things like with my body to be able to be like, this is my body energy and nothing's going to take it away from me. But let's look at the backlog. This is how much energy has been taken away from me. Creative energy, biological life force energy, time energy. Take it back. Take it back. And it's hard for me to describe what that activity actually feels like, but just like a drawing back in of that energy towards self, a soul reclamation. And then the other thing is constant impingement. I get a lot of impingement, which is kind of like being in a place where there are tiny pieces of metal that are flying at you all the time. So you can think of it as having a Merkaba and deflecting those things off. But there are thought forms and emotional forms also, and different triggers and different things like that. Shoot them back. Shoot them back. Send them back. Return to sender. Return to sender. But I want you to be accurate if you can. Because if you're really accurate, like if something is going to come at you in this direction, coming at you in this direction, and you're able to tilt your reflector in just the right way so that it vectors right back to whatever sent it. That has given me a huge amount of freedom because I don't have to know who is sending it. I don't have to know, is it an alive person, a dead person, a fragment, debris? Are they in the lower astral? Are they in the there? I don't have to know. All I have to know is return it to exactly the same place that it came from. And so that is what I have been doing, and those three things have actually been very effective techniques. So please love my very cute teaching of 10 years ago where I talk about just here are the choices of thought forms on the platter and make good loving choices. That's like, aw, that's so cute that I said that. But now what I want you to do is have like incredibly strong muscular shielding of yourself, taking back your energy again with exerting your willpower in very, very strong ways, and then also being very cunning in the way that you send back these energies that are shot at you, because this thing or whatever it is that assaults humanity makes an energetic investment. When it shoots these energies at you, in some sense, yes, it just wants rampant destruction, kill, mutilate, destroy. But on another level, what it wants is more energy. It wants, and what I perceive is here, so I use these crystals also for healing. And I could do this. I could just be like, heal, 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 heal. But if you do that, it doesn't change. I really noticed that because that's what I first started doing. I'm like, hooray, I have a crystal with an infinite reservoir of healing energy. I'll just constantly heal myself. And it is out of balance because this thing doesn't learn, change, or update its behavior. And I noticed it didn't start to update its behavior until I started to shoot back. And shoot back really means reflect back, because in all of these things, what I'm doing is like someone shoots arrows at you, you're like, thanks for the ammo, like I'll just be shooting those back at you. But don't shoot back in the wrong direction. You must calculate and shoot back or reflect back in exactly the right direction. It goes right back to them or it or stuff, whatever it is. Just vector, just say return to sender, return to sender, return to sender, return to sender. And in doing that, I have found that the healing is almost unnecessary, because when I don't know if you remember from last year, I did a lot of these implant removal protocols, entity removal protocols, and they always left me in huge energy deficit. And I remember talking to the practitioner about this. I'm like, that means energy deficit. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, no, yeah. Like, this is important stuff because you end up being out of balance. So sometimes these energy arrows that are shot at us through these millimeter waves, they're meant to destabilize us and take energy from us. So the reclaiming of my energy is sometimes taking my energy back, but sometimes taking an implant out of me. But if I take that implant out of me, I don't just want to be like, okay, fine, put it in the cosmic garbage can, because then this is what you don't want. Oh, look, an energy just got shot at me. Oh, well, take it out, put it in the cosmic garbage can. Oh, look, another. Take it out, put it in the cosmic garbage can. Another cosmic garbage can. Another cosmic garbage can. 10 million, 10 million, 10 billion. Cosmic garbage can 10 million times. You can't have a life doing that. It's not even being like the cosmic cleaning lady. Like, that is just being the ultimate, whatever, victim of the world, doormat of the world, and then constantly putting things in the cosmic garbage can. But if you're like, oh, I got shot with this arrow, I'm going to take it out, I'm going to shoot it back to the thing that shot it at me, something changes. And I know that something changes because I have, had many experiences where it's like, oh, look, that's not happening anymore because of what I did. Really, really important. And I also want you to know that doesn't make you either a bad person, doesn't make you against Christ, because there's all these things about like Jesus and getting crucified and he let himself get crucified and all these things. Please don't go into that paradigm. Fight back with everything you have in the most effective ways you possibly can. That is how you honor life. Please do not leave any stone unturned, or let's say, please do not ever allow yourself to be injured or harmed when you could have fought back effectively. That is not Christ. You know what Christ is? Because this is Christ right here. Christ is the state of empowerment on a larger galactic scale of consciousness when you are able to choose the directions that you are going. When something else is trying to subvert you and turn you this way or this way or this way or this way, but you're not allowed to go directly where you want to go, that is against Christ and it is against divine intelligence. And when you reclaim your capacity, you're like, I'm going in this direction. F off. Don't touch me. You're not allowed to stop me from going there. You are being Christ. And so being Christ does not mean that you're supposed to be a victim who is crucified or a martyr in honor of the victim who is crucified. Being Christ means being hugely empowered. You empower yourself on your journey, you protect yourself on your journey, and also you protect and empower those who aren't yet empowered. Be a lifeguard. You squeegee up the stuff so other people don't fall in the deep end. You help people who fell in the deep end. You send back stuff that's going to hurt other people too. That is also cosmic cleanup crew. So being Christ has everything to do with being adept and being perceptive and having a commitment to protecting others and to responding to the situation. There's almost no aspect of being Christ that's like, oh, well, I see that suffering is happening and huge injustices are happening. La, la, la. Let's go get a smoothie. You can't do that. Can't do that. You have to be like, wow, a lot of bad BS is happening. I have to actually do something about it, which, you can tell, sense what I did, which is flying rainbow lasagna. You get to choose the flavor of what you do. I'm like, I am going to flying rainbow lasagna and I'm going to do something. And then in being here, I'm like, I am going to make a lot of art and make a lot of music and tell people all about this stuff, and I'm not going to shut up, and I'm going to change things by talking about it so much. And that is the type of stuff that you do. Wait. So Joyce says, will Velostat fabric help stop 5G penetration on the brain? I don't know what Velostat fabric is. So I know that there are some good types of fabric that have like silver woven through them and copper woven through them. Those types of passive shielding do help. So you can have, first of all, you can have like a thing around your bed, like mosquito netting that is made out of this special fabric. Definitely helps to keep out the millimeter waves, both Bluetooth and 5G. It's a passive shielding. And what 5G does is vectors in. So if this is you over here, the 5G would be like, well, here's one emitter, and then here's a cell phone tower, and then here's another emitter, and then here's someone who got the subcutaneous pollutions over here, and they all vector in on you over here. So the most effective thing I've found are these crystals that are an active form of shielding that are constantly reassessing my environment. And then you see me doing this all throughout my day. I'm constantly moving them through my energy field. Oh, sorry. Hold on. I'm constantly moving them around my energy field, and also sometimes I'm reflecting and sending things back with them. So I use these in very, very complex ways. But things like organites, shungite, these things are passive shields that actually help a lot against 5G. So it really depends upon how much crapitude they put on your head. Some people, like the guy on the bicycle that I know in town, like they don't pour that much crapitude on his head. He doesn't feel that bad amidst this turmoil. But some people feel very bad amidst this turmoil. So I didn't start to get real personal peace and freedom and the ability to fight back until I got not one but two of these shielding things. And I use them constantly all throughout my day, and they're absolutely essential for me. Like, not to have my ASS fried constantly and to have any kind of quality of life. But, it's not that bad for everyone. So it really depends on what you need. But I will tell you, of all the things that I have had, like, I've been drinking shungite water for years. I have tons of shungite in my house. I have tons of orgonite in my house. I have all these different things. This is the only thing that actually has worked for me. Only thing that actually has worked. So some people are just very, very vectored upon, and that includes some of the things that I tried. I tried completely getting away from all technology, from all cell phone communication, from all internet service. I still got vectored on. And at this point, it comes from the sky, and it comes from unseen sources and possibly internal sources, so that it was not possible for me to simply run away from all technology and then not be harmed by the things that are going on. It was really necessary for me to find some better form of shielding. And, eventually I did develop the innate flying rainbow lasagna capacity for this better shielding. But with this stuff, this is like an umbrella that does it for me without me having to use a huge amount of willpower. So then that frees up my flying rainbow lasagna to actually flying rainbow lasagna, instead of using my flying rainbow lasagna as a giant umbrella shield against a constant army of crappiness. Pedro says, never liked he says, turning the other cheek. Exactly. And Pedro's saying, like a Faraday cage. Yes. So you can be in a Faraday cage. It's not that practical to live in it. And also your biology will suffer if you are constantly in a Faraday cage, because that will cut you off from your earth connection. So you have to have earth connection, and actually you have to have sky and star connection. But if you're at that level and you're connected to the earth and the sky, then you're going to be vulnerable to these types of attacks. So then if you get into a Faraday cage, then you won't have impact from the cell phones and other things like that, but then you also won't have nourishment from the sun, the stars, and the earth, which you have to have that nourishment too. So very, very challenging times we live in. The real answer to all of this is, at a certain point, we reclaim our story making, reality narrative generation, structuring capacity fully, because this thing has been 100% hijacking your treasury, and sanitize not only our world but all worlds. Because this stuff, there's repeaters on the moon, there's repeaters on Saturn. Do you understand? It's not just the Starlink satellite system. It's not just 5G in your neighborhood. It's not just Bluetooth on your parking meters. It's stuff in your solar system. It's stuff in your galaxy. What is happening on this planet right now is a frequency war that affects the entirety of your whole galaxy and beyond, because this stretches across time and dimensionality. Your life is not small and inconsequential. Your life is incredibly potent, powerful, important, and the struggles that you face here are not small, mundane struggles. They are enormous struggles that represent the larger struggles of the entire alive cosmos to stay alive and not be harmed by, it's not just technology that is being deployed by this, but this really like malevolent mind state or malevolent waveforms that have been pervading our world. So the battles that you fight and win here absolutely matter and radiate. They have significance, and they radiate outward into a much, much larger system. That is why you're here. Got it, guys? You're not here just like scraping by in order to be a human being. You're not just here in order to pay your taxes like, good American citizens or something like that. You're absolutely here in order to fight and win these personal battles and this larger spiritual battle that will bring freedom to you as consciousness and all consciousness everywhere, because you cannot have a little group of freedom and then mostly slavery. You have to have entirety freedom. And just to be sparklingly clear, freedom does not mean the freedom to kill, rape, and mutilate. Freedom means the freedom to dance the flying rainbow lasagna and be in your genetic truthfulness wherever you would want to go. It does not mean the freedom to harm and imprison others. So I am Aurora, and I'm very much based in freedom, but these other things that are like, oh, we're based in freedom too, and we're freedom to punch you in the face. No, that is not freedom. That is not freedom, because freedom, if they want to say freedom to punch you in the face, you have the freedom to send that punch right back to them. And you don't have to have it land upon you at all. Be like, oh, because you know what? I can actually anticipate that they're about to punch me in the face, and I can send it back to them before they even send it out to me. That's what it is to be in Christ. Pedro says, love your class. I always learn something new. Love the lasagna. Thank you so much, Pedro. So much love received. So much love back to you. I really appreciate your presence. I appreciate that you've been a student for so long. You have so many great ideas and you participate in wonderful ways. So thank you for adding to our one-room schoolhouse so much. I am going to wrap it up. I will tell you that I only covered a tiny amount of what's in my notes. A tiny amount, but I think that this is why I do these live lectures. I'm never going to be a parrot just simply regurgitating what I have created many, many years ago. I'm always going to contextualize it in the light of your present circumstances, and always in the sense of empowerment, never merely just decrying, talking about that everything is wrong radio. We really have to go into empowerment radio. So that is my complete intention for this. So check out the notes. Again, I always send them in the email. That's for everyone that's in this class. And for anyone who catches me on YouTube, thank you for being in my class, however unofficially. I almost always have the link to the PDF of my notes, the flight manual. That is there in a Dropbox for you to be able to read. So you can read the notes, and I would hope that you would also want to enroll. And then the notes come directly from the whiteboards from 10 years ago. The whiteboards from 10 years ago are still wonderful and relevant, but then they are the genesis for a conversation like this. That's like, okay, great. Those are running shoes that are great for that time, but now you're going to have like super winter snow boots or something like that, or like hip waders. You're going to need some hip waders now. You're not just going to wear some little tennis shoes. You need hip waders now, because there is something deep that is going on that is much, much more than it ever was before. So I think, and I hope that you appreciate, like, it's deep stuff, bad stuff, but I use humor and lightheartedness, not like a silly idiot, but like a strong person, that like we laugh and use humor in the face of these things so that you don't go down into the swamps of despair. Don't go into despair. Flying rainbow lasagna. Put on some kick-ass music. Flying rainbow lasagna. Change and improve reality. You are amazing people, and I'm very, very pleased to be connected to you, and I'm very, very pleased to be have you in this class, and I'm also very, very pleased to be able to say, like I said earlier and truthfully, that so much sovereignty work has been done by you guys and many others that you're not going to get swirled down the cosmic toilet. You're not going to get uploaded into some kind of a microchip Borg world and lose your souls. That is not going to happen. Quite the opposite. You regain and reclaim full ownership of your souls. Kick ass in a major way. Yeah. So it's time for me to WALK someone over here who's actually playing very nicely with her toys, but I can tell the room is very hot and stuffy. We're going to get out and go for a nice walk. Finally, Pedro says, if you can't find good music, make your own. That is my motto. Exactly. Or you can always contact me. I have these playlists of my original stuff that I make, please. Or you can find me on SoundCloud. Marie says, thank you. I so appreciate you. Thank you, Marie. You are wonderful. And you're a dancer in my cosmic dance movement class, so you know what I'm talking about. Thank you for dancing. Thank you for dancing with me and adding your own energy and input and unique genetic flavor to what we are doing here. So thank you very much, everyone. Continued encouragement and positivity and recognition of your efforts so far. Please keep going. Please remain strong. Thank you.